tonight for this work session and public discussion on whether or not we keep St. Benedict's homeless campsite open or not. The way the meeting is going to go is we're going to have staff give an overview of where we are and how we got to where we are today. And then we're going to open it up for anyone in the audience to come up to the microphone and make your comments. Each of you will get an opportunity to speak tonight. There will be a 3-minute limit on your comments. There's a clock that's right there at the 3-minute mark. It'll go off a buzzer, or either we'll tell you to stop with your comments at that particular time. We do ask that you be thoughtful, considerate, respectful in your words and in your comments. We don't encourage any type of clapping or any type of audience outbursts, because we're trying to make sure that everybody's voice is heard. When we hear clapping or outbursts, it prevents other people from being able to finish or complete their train of thought. So if you would, when you make a comment or if someone says something that you may or may not agree with, we do ask that you do not clap or applaud or anything like that, so that person doesn't lose their train of thought. After everyone speaks, staff would then turn the conversation back over to council. Council will then have discussion on all of the comments and the things that we need to make sure that we can give staff guidance on, okay? Our city manager, Ms. Sanchez, do you want to say anything, or are you ready to start?
We're ready to start. You did a great job.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so from a staff perspective, as you explained, we wanted to provide just the facts of why we created St. Benedict, what was out at St. Benedict, some of the issues that we've seen, and just make sure that we have all that information before you. So from a history perspective, St. Benedict is located on the southwest portion of our community. It is on city-owned land that is tucked behind the rodeo grounds and the ball fields. In 2020, one of the reasons we created it was in response to COVID. The other reason we created it was because of the 2018 decision in Martin v. Boise. And as a reminder, essentially what that decision meant for communities is that our hands were tied on enforcing no camping ordinances unless there was a place for homeless individuals to go. Obviously, we do have a homeless shelter, but if there's more homeless individuals than shelter beds, that's where communities would run into issues on enforcing no camping. So with COVID, the shelter was closed down, the buses were shut down, most of any public restrooms were shut down, and we were left with a homeless population and nowhere to go in the middle of a pandemic. And so these two items, we landed on this location and decided to open up this campsite. At the campsite, there is just one location for potable water. There's one location for electricity, and it requires USB ports. There is trash dumpsters out there. There are porta-johns. We do have fencing to try to identify and keep the property to itself. We do have Wi-Fi. We did have 15 huts out there, 2 of which burned, and after proving to not accomplish what we intended with them, we did remove the other ones, especially from a health perspective. We do have rules. There are security cameras. We did add about a year ago a dedicated space for vehicles. This is because we have individuals living in their cars, parking in neighborhoods, which was making those residents uncomfortable. So this was an area that those with cars could also go. But then what brings us to tonight is the 2024 Supreme Court decision that changed that requirement to have somewhere to go in order to enforce our no camping ordinance. What does St. Benedict look like for those who have not been out there? It's a mix. I look at this and would not say that this is necessarily very attractive. At the same time, it is a location where they can camp legally. This picture in number 1 is when you're standing outside the main entrance and looking in. You can see the porta-johns. There's a little bit of a concrete barrier poking out from the porta-johns. That's the one location for water. You can see the rules are posted, and then to the right of that, the one location for electricity. Number 2 is standing very similar to the same area, but you can see that there's this divergence where the road path goes and loops around and comes back. And you can see the beginning of some of the tents along the fence line there. When you look at number 3, that's more in the middle of the campsite. You can see that there's different types of, with 3 and 4, there's different types of tents. There's different levels of how individuals have kept their property. Some have accumulated a little bit more than others type of situation. You can also see in number 3, one of our poles that provides lights and other activities or other items. Going to the next slide. Number 5 is to show that dedicated parking area that we added just about a year ago. Number 6 shows the very back area that would be closest to that parking area. Sorry, I was told to pause for a minute.
It was audio for Zoom.
Are we good? Okay, we think the audio for Zoom wasn't working. So again, number 6 is in the far back corner. We've placed some porta-johns there. You can see there's more tents along the fence line. Number 7 is just to show another view of the campsite with tents and some of the items that have accumulated. These are the current rules. I'm not going to necessarily go through all of them. We've always had rules, but it's also been a balancing act. It was something where if we're enforcing our no camping and someone doesn't follow the rules, if they get trespassed, we needed to be able to defend ourselves in court that this is a reasonable rule and we can still enforce our no camping ordinances. Obviously, we did not want open fires. We wanted them to keep them clean from a trash and rubbish perspective. They cannot have vehicles in the campsite except in the one area. Pets are supposed to be on a leash or some other means. We do have items related to noise and obviously prohibiting any criminal activities. So the big question, if we go to the next slide, is on costs. We have several different types of costs. So the first cost I want to review of council is what I would call one-time costs. These are the costs associated with getting the campsite up and going and some of the additions we had to make to the camp. So in the beginning, we did get grants, and we used the city's CARES funding for the creation of the campsite. So that includes fencing, putting in the electricity, running the Wi-Fi, doing the loop so our trash trucks and emergency vehicles could drive on that. We received another grant to put in security cameras. And as the campsite was up and going and we saw what kind of different behaviors were going on and what other needs were emerging, we realized we needed to put in additional fencing on the west side, as well as strengthen some of the fencing between this location and our properties that are in the industrial park. We've also had to replace a pole, and then you'll see that last bullet item of $47,000. That's the staff time for equipment and labor to put in that road that we drive on and to help with putting in the fencing and all of those types of things. So the one-time cost was about $187,000. Now, on an ongoing basis, we have two types of expenses. We have actual hard costs that the city pays bills on, and then we have in-kind expenses. So on the hard costs, we are paying approximately $14,000 a year on porta-johns and just shy of $2,000 on electricity. The in-kind expenses, from an annual perspective, water is about 576, trash is 692. The time for our CSOs to be out there for the monthly cleanups is a little bit over 1,000. And then the time that our parks crews spend cleaning up some of the areas around the ball field and the fairground, if someone breaks into the announcer's booth, things like that, is ranging around $500 to $1,000. So that gives you a total cost from both the one time to create it and then what our ongoing operational costs have been. Our overall experience has been mixed. On the not so great side, I would say, is especially for the industrial park properties, they've seen an increased nuisance and criminal behavior. Individuals loitering on their property, attempts to break in, some theft of either within vehicles or trying to break into a building, mail, that type of situation. They are reporting sometimes distribution of drugs or individuals maybe getting high on their property. And they also have a fear, especially when we had the huts, on if there's a fire and how close they are from that perspective. We have abandoned sites and trash. And so to be clear, when we do our volunteer pickups, we do not pick up anywhere near the individual sites where individuals are still there. The only things volunteers work on is that one area where the porta-johns are, that kind of common area, and the sites that have been abandoned. So those individuals are no longer there. We have seen continual manipulation and abuse of electrical system. When we first put it in, it was not a USB system, and we had electrical cords run all the time, and that's not what the intent was. So we changed it to USB. Since then, we've had individuals on a fairly regular basis breaking into it. And more recently, someone did electrocute themselves, so Excel did remove it. So right now, they do not have electrical service out at the campsite until we know if we're keeping the campsite, and if we are keeping it, if you want us to put it back in. We have continual damage to the fencing, especially on the side nearest the industrial park. The individuals will cut into the fencing so they can go back and forth more easily. We have damage to the porta-johns. And then obviously there's a fair amount of staff time to address these issues, needing to fix the fence, needing to address the electricity, just trying to figure out a way to prevent some of the behaviors that are occurring. On the other side, what we have heard from some people, but I don't necessarily have data to support this either, is that there's a benefit to having a central location for providers to engage with the population. I do know from being out there for the cleanups and for other instances that we do have community partners who are on site more often than what I had witnessed prior to the creation of the campsite. Someone might argue maybe there's a decrease in camping in other areas of the community, such as along our trails and our parks. And some might argue that there's a decrease in loitering behavior for electrical and Wi-Fi. But again, there is no data to support this. And I'm going to turn it over to Bill for this slide to talk about the fire experience.
Hello, my name is Bill Stone. I'm the Alamos Fire Chief. From the fire perspective, the Alamos City Fire Department has responded to 22 calls for service to St. Benedict's from February 1st, 2022 to 7/31/2024. That's approximately 8.8 calls per year, with 17 of those calls being for fire suppression. The fires ranged from simple cooking fires or warming fires to explosions from compressed gas cylinders of propane or other fuels.
And then, George, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, George Dinkfelder, Chief of Police for Alamosa. So I'm new here, been here 3 months, but we've been keeping stats on this, I guess, since inception in 21. So 800, since 2021, 830 calls for service since it opened, so approximately 207 calls per year. There's been 52 assaults, so approximately 13 per year, 12 violent sexual assault, domestic violences, 4 unattended deaths, and then trespass that have been booted out and not allowed to come back. In 2023, there's 7 so far. In 2024, there's been 5 people that have been trespassed from there. So some of the things that we've seen out there, there's definitely an established hierarchy where the most vulnerable are being re-victimized. I mean, they're already victims of homelessness, yet they're being re-victimized by the hierarchy out there. They've established a hierarchy. And then one of our biggest concerns is the environmental concerns, the trash, the feces, the rodents and the food and everything that's laid around. So that's kind of been our, that's just a real quick recap of what we've seen. I mean, obviously there's daily, we're out there daily for calls for service and or just making sure and doing walkthroughs. So I'll turn it back over to Heather.
Obviously, once we're done with this, at any point, council can ask plenty of questions of any of us sitting up here. Looking forward for the St. Benedict future, if council keeps St. Benedict, we would need to spend approximately $5,000 to put the electricity back if council so desires. We also will need to put in an ADA porta-john. There's been changes at the state level, and this will increase our annual cost ranging from $2,500 to $3,000. If council does decide to keep St. Benedict, staff's recommendation is that we do increase the rules and standards. We no longer need to have this balancing act now that the Supreme Court has made their decision. Now, also though, keep in mind on how stringent we make the rules, then we might see a lot more trespassing, which means those individuals will be moved out into the community as well. If council decides to close St. Benedict, the efforts to move the soup kitchen and construct a cold weather shelter may not make sense anymore, and we should probably return the $145,000 in grant funds that were received for the design and engineering. Additionally, I feel it is important for me as your city manager to make sure to say this, trying to do my crystal ball and look into the future. I want to make sure we don't receive pressure to add police officers in order to stay on top of enforcement. I feel like a police officer driving up to the campsite to respond to a call in their patrol vehicle takes a certain amount of work versus having to get out of their patrol vehicle out onto the trails and other types of areas. And as we know from looking at the call volume for our police department, we're already strained. And so I want to make sure we don't make a decision without thinking about that impact as well. Finally, I know council knows this, but it's surprising how many of these misconceptions still exist in the community. And so I think this is an important time to make very clear and set the record straight. So the first one is the city does not bus, nor do we advertise to bring homeless individuals to town. In fact, the exact opposite is true. If anyone wishes to leave, we have been buying bus tickets. We've spent almost $5,000 in 2023, and in 2024, we've spent almost $2,000. So we have no gain of bringing homeless individuals to our community. Which leads me to the next bullet point. The city does not make money from having homeless individuals in Alamosa. It's the exact opposite. Those who are experiencing homelessness oftentimes can create expenses in other areas, such as social services, behavioral health, substance use disorder services, healthcare, especially emergency room costs, nonprofit services, and all of the legal aspects. Yes, the city has applied for grants in order to create St. Benedict, but 100% of those grants funded what they were requested for. So they built a fence, it put in the electricity. Not one penny from those grants covered any overhead for city expenses. There is no money that the city makes from having homeless individuals. We cannot stop people from coming to Alamosa. Communities are they already are playing the shell game with the homeless individuals. They, just like I said for our bullet up above, might be buying bus tickets for homeless individuals to go to a different community. We cannot restrict people's ability to move around. If another community sends a homeless individual here, if another homeless individual finds their way here, we cannot stop them from coming. We also cannot force individuals to leave. These are all constitutional rights. The city also cannot stop most of the loitering that you see on public property. We realize that this is a pretty big frustration. Now, we are bringing before council at their August 21st meeting a way to tighten up a little bit to where they cannot sit or lie on the public property. But if they stand all day long on a corner and it's not creating a safety issue, legally, there is nothing the city can do to stop that. The city also can't force people to utilize treatment or stop certain behaviors. I think some of us can look at an individual and think, you need to go into substance use treatment, or you need to seek mental health treatment, or just stop doing this behavior and everything will get better. We can't force people. So as much as we may know the path to healing and the path to doing better, we can't force individuals. Additionally, based on the numbers collected by the city's co-responders and La Puente Outreach, we estimate that about 51% of the homeless population is either from the valley or has resided here housed for 3 years. That's about 138 individuals out of 270. A lot of time there's this debate of how many are homeless and how many are from out of the valley. St. Benedict was not created to end homelessness. It does not even begin to provide the type of services that are needed to end homelessness. Again, St. Benedict's was created because of COVID and our ability to need to force no camping ordinances. So it was not provided all the wraparound and all the other services that start to get at homelessness. It is just a place where individuals can legally be. We also cannot put people in jail for failure to pay court fees and fines. That would be illegal. And then I'm going to have the chief walk through what enforcement would actually look like if we close St. Benedict.
Okay, thank you. So first off, I'll start this. Being homeless is not a crime. But open drug use, disorderly conduct, theft, damage to property, and trespassing, to name a few, are crimes. Whether you are homeless or not, those are still crimes, whether you're homeless or not, and they're not acceptable behavior. We have discretion on whether to cite someone or not. We use it daily, whether it's a traffic stop or any other incident we respond to. We will not be out just to write tickets, but sometimes in order to change behavior, we have to change our tactics, just like you do if you're disciplining a child. So if we do away at the camp, we will do morning and daily sweeps of the alleys and Main Street to move people along if they're sleeping or camping on the streets and parks, parking lots, wherever. We will respond to citizen complaints, just like we do now. And as city manager talked about, we are in the process of changing our trespassing and obstructing public right-of-ways law to include no sitting or lying on the sidewalks. As we would with anyone else, we will start with a conversation and move them along. If they refuse to move along, then we will cite them, just as we would with anybody else who is not homeless.
And then I don't know if you do this, or Holly, I didn't prepare you, but when we cite someone, the next step is going to be to appear in municipal court, because that's the level, like if you could walk it through.
Okay, yeah, so if we get somebody that's, whether it's disorderly conduct, trespassing, whatever, we'll write them a citation with a court date, and they'll appear in municipal court. If they don't show up for that, then the judge can issue a warrant. If the warrant is issued, then we pick them up on the warrant, take them, they have the right to bond or however, but that's how the process is going to work. Again, I can't reiterate that enough. We're not going to be out just to cite people. That would take up all of our time, just like we do with everybody else. We will use discretion. We will always have a verbal conversation with somebody to try and get them to comply before we move to enforcement.
And if someone's not able to pay from a court fees and fines, is it usually public service that is assigned by the judge?
I think it's better Eric to answer.
Yeah, so ability to pay has nothing to do with public service. If someone is cited into municipal court and found guilty of whatever violation they were cited for, typically the court will issue a fine. And if that doesn't get paid, it gets sent to collections. If the same individual has multiple instances of that similar kind of violation, the court will eventually start to assign useful public service for that. And that can be enforced through contempt of court if it isn't done by a jail sentence for contempt of court. And then as council is aware, another discussion before you is modification of our jailable, non-jailable offenses.
So counsel, with that was, are you done, Chief?
I'm done.
Okay, that was our staff presentation. If we want to go straight to the public comments. And just to reiterate what the mayor indicated, we have a full room and we have a lot of strongly held beliefs. My hope is, as individuals speak, that there can be an appreciation for the hot seat you guys are in. This is a untenable type of situation. I'm not sure there's any decision you can make that isn't going to have some sort of consequence. And so it's not easy. And I hope that as people provide comments, that the level of decorum will continue.
Thank you, Ms. Sanchez. So I know a lot of you were not here earlier when I made comments about the way we're going to handle the open comment section today. Usually what we do at council when we see elected officials, we do like to recognize those who are in the audience. I recognize 3 of them so far. If there are any other ones that I haven't seen, please forgive me, but raise your hand and I'll try to recognize you. But we have County Commissioner Lori Lasky here. We have a former City Council member Charlie Grego, and we have a school board member Heidi Richardson here. So thank you, elected official, for your services that you provide in our community. So tonight, what we're going to do is open up the public comment section. The microphones are up here. Please make sure the red light is on when you come up and speak. We will not use comment cards tonight, so we're just gonna have you come up, make your comments, and then sit back down, and then the next person come, and we'll keep going. Everyone will get an opportunity who would like to speak tonight. You will get that opportunity. We do limit the conversations to 3 minutes. 3 minutes. We keep track of it right here. If you're still speaking at the 3-minute mark, I will politely ask you to end your comments so that the next person can come up and make their comments. We ask that you don't applaud or cheer or do any type of audience outburst or anything like that, because what that does is it disrupts a person's train of thought, and they may have something that they wanted to say, but that disruption could affect their train of thought. And a lot of people are nervous talking in front of a lot of people anyway, so we want to make sure that every voice is heard tonight. Doesn't matter how long it takes tonight, everyone will have that opportunity. Now, once we finish with the audience here making comments, we will then go to the participants that are on Zoom. We will give them the same opportunity to make their comments. Now, City Council will not be going back and forth with you while you're making your comments. If you ask us a question, we will be taking notes of those questions, and then council and staff will review some of those questions once everything is turned back over to us. So if you have questions, you can ask, but we will not be responding. In fact, none of us are going to respond while you're talking, because we want to make sure everyone gets that opportunity. When the participants here in the room have completed and the participants on Zoom are finished, Then we'll turn everything back over to council for council discussion. Council will not be talking with the audience, going back and forth with you about what we're talking about. We're just gonna talk and have conversation, and then we're gonna come to a resolution to figure out what the next steps for guidance are for staff, okay? All right, with that being said, we'll have the first person, if you could, come up to the mic and make your comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Donna Wei. And I'm not sure the exact timing. I want to say about 7 years ago, maybe 8. So think of that as pre-St. Benedict's, pre-COVID. The homeless numbers in the community seem to be on the rise. So the city handpicked a advisory committee. So the committee that I sit on is who I'm representing tonight. And we've been meeting throughout that time, and most of us are service providers such as healthcare, behavioral health, police force. We have a faith community representative, and then those meetings are open to the public so people can come in and sit and listen to the discussion at the meetings. And it was a chance for kind of leaders and providers in the community to kind of come up with solutions, look at problems, fill out think of gaps, and look at services that were being provided to this population. So it's been very educational. We know that there's a shortage of affordable housing, especially for singles. So it was kind of at the same timing that there seemed to be like a housing crunch across the state and the region. So again, through that work, all these different things have developed. So we won't go into all the history. But the other night we met and we did a straw poll of the people that were there. And the majority felt like it was a benefit to keep St. Ben's open just because it's easier as a service provider to locate the person that we're trying to help, follow up with them if they were trying to get services. And we talked a lot about the pros and cons, and the decision was not unanimous. So I just want to say that it's a tough decision, but the majority of the people that were at the meeting in that role that we've been asked to serve as the advisory council to the city said that they would like to keep it open. And one of the comments we made was, this decision we make tonight has some big effects like building the soup kitchen and things like that, but it also doesn't have to be permanent. If it stays open and it becomes an issue or a problem down the road, then close it. So it's not like what you decide tonight has to be permanent, in our opinion, as service providers. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next.
Can each of my personalities have 3 minutes, or is it?
Yeah, use one of your personalities tonight, bro.
Bill Werner, and I'm going to speak as the former director of the Red Cross. I ran the Red Cross for 9 years here, 11 counties in Southwest Colorado. I also traveled all over America from Hurricane Sandy, Hurricane Harvey, and a bunch of them. And my perspective is every time we opened a shelter, people came from other communities to get the goods. And we would try to screen them, and when they would hear, oh, there's a disaster in this community, they were driving from other towns to get the stuff. We'd be handing out blankets and tents and stuff. Happened in Durango. We had 200 people in tents that came to the shelter. None of them would stay in the shelter because there were rules, but they all wanted the stuff. And so, you know, when I had the Red Cross office in my real estate office, for the last 9 years, I've had people literally come in and say, we saw an ad to come to Alamosa because La Puente had family housing. I had a family from North Dakota who came all the way here because they were promised family housing. Denver, people from Denver stopping in, hey, they don't have room in the shelter. Can the Red Cross accommodate us? Give us a voucher. I'm like, well, how did you end up in the coldest city, you know, in the nation? Well, we saw an ad. We were told that this is the place to come. So having the shelter there, not having the shelter there, it's kind of like scooping water out of the front of a rowboat with a hole in it. If we're bringing them in one side and scooping out the other, it's not solving the issue of them feeling like there's stuff here that they can get and not have to earn or work for. And I know we can look at the big picture of some of them are, it's mental health issues and stuff. But again, just having gone all over America running these operations, we finally had to start checking IDs and say, this is your third day for a free rake. Where do you even live? And, so we would say, okay, if you aren't in this county, you can't come here and get the donations that were meant for the displaced people in that county. And so I know saying 51% were from the Valley in the last 3 years, but this has been going on for a lot longer than 3 years. I mean, again, I had my office there for 9 years, and I can tell you, it was pretty regular that people were coming in looking for handouts because they were told to come here. So, dang, I got 35 seconds left. Let me think of something else. I guess that'll do it.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Lance Cheslock. Work at La Puente. Thank you for everybody coming because I think wide community perspectives are very important. Just to start out, today, the number of homeless in Alamosa, the unsheltered, is at 116. That is a 10-year low. 3 years ago, it was at 185. I attribute that to the partnerships that the city and other service providers have done in this last chunk of years, where we're all working together, the city with co-responders, with St. Ben's, the hospital, Valleywide Behavioral Health. So our numbers are down. Our data disagrees with the narrative that people are coming from afar. I just want to say that I don't want to go into the details of that because you can look, we can share that in other ways. Our outcome data for St. Benedict's, this isn't for La Puente, so for St. Benedict's, is that 214 individuals have found residence out there. Every single one has received at least one service while they're out there. Of these, 124 have left the encampment to move indoors, including 36 individuals who have moved into rental housing of their own. Residents of the encampment achieved a 57% rate of transition from unsheltered homelessness to living consistently indoors. I consider that a success. Similar to what Donna brought up, that having a single point of access for services is one of the most important things. Chasing people in the woods, down alleys, and it's an egg hunt that will never end. The trash and the feces and all of that are getting collected at St. Ben's through the services out there will also be scattered throughout communities. Just don't think that the point of access is so important to what we're trying to do. And from a client perspective, the residents out there, one of the reasons that they choose to be out there is their safety in numbers. Camping or being in a place of isolation creates greater risk to them. At the same time, when you ask what they need the most, they agree that the safety out there and the security out there is insufficient, and that's hard. We all have to work to solve that problem, to bring that problem to an end. And lastly, want to say that, if we agree that our goal is to reduce the number of individuals experiencing unsheltered homelessness here, the efficient provision of healthcare services and housing-oriented case management make it possible by the encampment. It becomes an effective and evidence-based strategy for achieving that goal. We want to continue to work on our numbers and show those successes. Our ability to provide services will reduce homelessness. Scattering the homeless throughout the community will just create community frustrations. Thank you for your time, and come by and visit us sometime.
Thank you. And you could pull it down. There you go. And if you could speak into it so the Zoom participants can hear, that'd be great.
Thank you very much. My name is Nico Centeno. I'm a citizen here in Alamosa. I wanted to talk about the costs. We saw some numbers about how much it's costing to keep St. Benedict's. I'm strongly in favor of keeping St. Benedict's, and I'd like to talk about some costs that come with what would be removing that. I've done a lot of research. I have some studies. The studies that I'm gonna share with you today, I limited my research to areas and counties that are similar in our population, similar to our homeless population, similar to, how much money we have in the Valley, how much money we have in our budget. One is a 2014 study in Florida, and they found this was a study of the cost that it took for removing 33, this was 33 frequently homeless people from a camp, and they found that it cost taxpayers $31,000 per homeless person after taking them out of the camp, when it came to citations, when it came to mental health crisis, when it came to, taking them out of the camp and those costs. That was booking costs for arrest, that was citation costs, that was additional police costs. You had mentioned, we don't want to have to put more pressure on the police force. We don't want to have more police officers. Well, this shows, with daily sweeps, with arrest warrants, the increased necessity of that was thousands and thousands of dollars simply in the arrest, just the arrest of the 33 frequent homeless people over 5 years cost $1 million. If we want to take that to Colorado numbers, this is a study done out of the University of Denver that in 1 year alone, Denver spent $750,000 just enforcing camping bans after removing certain homeless camps. This was not associated costs of having to deal with, going more out further into town, gas prices, having more police officers. They surveyed 73 counties in Colorado, having to arrest a homeless person and then keeping them in jail just for camping, just for the camping, is a minimum of $50 per person per day. The max was $300. Adjudication citations were an average of $170 per citation. We also found from the Journal of American Medical Association, looking at communities that were removed from these camps, that there was a 50% increase in hospitalization, and there was an increase in medication for opiate use disorder, and that came out of the county budget, right? We also saw from several different studies that there is an increase in violence and drug use, and specifically violence against non-homeless people. I understand that we have our police officers having to go to the camps, but they saw an increase of violence against
Okay.
people who were non-homeless.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
So I'm going to try to keep this short. My name is Renee Bella. I currently am a resident down on the side where the homeless camp is. I've seen a lot of things go on down our street, which is something lots of people would not like to see. So I agree that there does need to be something addressed and maybe some accommodations for them. I do feel sorry for them. But on the other hand, when you have these people walking into your yard and helping themselves, I've only called out once, but luckily I have a nephew living with me who can address the situation and ask them to leave. If not, they've actually stood up to him and said, pay up. So this is the situation I live with down south, on the south side. I would recommend that if you plan on keeping St. Benedict's, relocate them somewhere else. You've got the community center there, you've got the baseball fields, you have residents there, and you put them, having them there is an issue. I mean, car alarms are going off at night. My truck alarm goes off at night. I'm just saying, if you want to deal with it, take it to your back door. I can't, it's wrong. I live alone, had to bring somebody in to live with me because of the situation. You live in fear and you see what it's like having somebody knock at your back door. Just think about it. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, next.
What's up, guys?
If you could speak into the microphone.
Yeah, my name is Daniel Paul Roach. Hey, and I want to lighten up a little bit here. I know that this has been a very serious conversation, but I've got two things that I'm up here to do. To ask questions and give compliments. I want to first give compliments right now to Mayor Ty for creating right now a beautiful community that you've done a hell of a job, my man, making this a community. And we do have to call law enforcement every once in a while, which is understandable. Majority of the time, you know, that law enforcement doesn't need to be there. Tim, wherever you're at right here, I had to call law enforcement yesterday. I called 911 emergency. George, it was great speaking with you yesterday, man. It was an emergency that I called 911 because there was a gentleman, and I hope that he made it, and I'm not going to use his name, but he promised the honorary Mayor Jazz here, who's my miniature Australian Shepherd, that the police have tried putting in the dog pound twice. We'll talk about that later, Joey. Anyways, it was an emergency to get this man to detox. There's a lot of people down there that are wanting to get the help, but they don't have anybody to help guide them. You know, I've got 1:50 left, and I got questions that I want to ask. Is, for one, why did the fentanyl get here? George, you've been on for 3 months. The fentanyl, the heroin. Why is Clay, Playboy Perry, still down there right now in Tent City? I asked you yesterday, you said you're doing an investigation. We know he's the kingpin down there. You know he's the kingpin. Tim knows he's the kingpin. Jazz knows he's the kingpin. Some of you guys might know his name, but I asked you yesterday to get him out of there. And I pray to God that you get him out of there after this, after midnight tonight. And if I need to wait for you afterwards to go point him out to you to clean up Tent City, then we'll do it. We'll do it. And I want to end this as well with my last minute to also say that, you know, we've had a great time here. Last weekend, we had the barbecue festival that went on. Christine, it's good to see you too. But last weekend, we had the barbecue festival go on, and we had the best time, man. The barbecue was great. September 10th, 9th, 10th, and 11th, there's a birthday going on. It might be the Honorable Mayor Jazz's birthday. It might be somebody else's birthday in here, somebody, but we want to have live music in this town, and we want to bring music back to this town for a weekend festival. And I want to also, you know, say that I see one cop in here that beat the shit out of me, excuse my language, in the hospital. You guys have tried to lock me up twice. My name is Daniel Paul Roach. You guys need to start living up to your names, gentlemen, all of you. And ladies, excuse me. Okay, no, I'm asking people to live up to their names. That's asking a question. We're all named for a reason. I was named after a prophet, a major prophet, Daniel. My last name is Daniel Paul Roach.
Okay,
That's
Daniel,
it.
your time is up. Thank you. Next.
That's going to be hard to follow up. Hello.
And just for the audience, just so you know, we have to give everyone their 3 minutes, no matter what. So I'll make sure we control the meeting, okay? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Brandon Coffey. I've lived in this community my whole life. I was born here, raised here. I remember you teaching me. Recently, I wrote an article, investigative article about homelessness here in the community because I was noticing a lot of antagonistic views that the general community has been having towards them, and I wanted to see if any of that was true. So for my article, I went around, interviewed many community members and people of the homeless community as well. And what I found was that stereotype, that narrative that we live, that homeless people are like degenerates that are causing our problems. It's not true. Like that was mentioned before about that whole thing about them, we advertise people to come here. I found no truth in that. So there's a lot of, sorry, I'm not used to speaking publicly, but what I found is a lot of these people are normal people that need help, going through transitions, are having hard times, and they need help. And honestly, I don't see a benefit by taking this space away. I don't see it. I think we should be working to make better services for people who are going through transition. And going backwards to me just doesn't seem right. And that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Howdy. My name is Daniel Bella. I don't live at Tent City no more. I was there for about 6 months. Thank God it was there for me. I recommend you guys keep it open because I use it as a stepping stone. I've been homeless before in my life. So I came out here and I had a stroke and I got kicked out of my apartment for some strange reason. Anyways, I ended up at Tent City. I was there for 6 months. I got an apartment now. So I think it's a great place to or somebody who's, because everybody has hard times sometimes, you know, and people have hard times. So it's a stepping stone to help those get up and move on with their lives. I got out, and I hope I don't have to go back. I thank God that it was there for me at the time when I needed it. And not everybody's bad out there, and you know, it's. I think it's a great place for people who fall down. I mean, who's to say? It might be you, it might be somebody else. That's bad luck. COVID came upon everybody like crazy, and you know, I recommend stays open because some people need help. Like I say, I was out there for 6 months, and I got out. And I'm in an apartment now, and I thank God. But I also thank God that Tent City was there, and I was able to have some place that I was safe, where I was safe at night, and now that I didn't wander the streets or anything. You know, I served my country, and I'm glad that I had a place to go in Tent City there. I stayed there for 6 months, like I say, and I got out. The mental health got me an apartment, and that was great. So there's some people out there who really just want to get out. They don't want to be there. I know they don't want to be there. They want to get out as well. And as soon as they get an apartment, they would rather be out of there too. But if they close it down, they'll have no place to go. You know, and I hate to think of that because I really appreciate it was there for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good evening, City Council. Thanks for being here. Community members as well. My name is Christina George. I stand before you today as both a dedicated city employee of the Alamosa Recreation Center and a resident of the Alamosa community. I appreciate the opportunity to share my perspectives regarding this discussion of St. Benedict's, both of which are deeply connected to the issue of location. As a professional perspective, as you deliberate on the future of St. Benedict's homeless camp, I want to express my concerns about its proximity to the Alamosa Recreation Center. The camp's current location presents several challenges for our facility. Our recreation staff have consistently upheld our building policies despite facing difficult situations involving individuals from St. Benedict's. Enforcing these policies places our staff in uncomfortable and potentially risky situations daily. We have not encountered serious incidents. We have had to rely on Alamosa Police Department to help manage individuals who might compromise the safety of our staff and our patrons. We extend our heartfelt thanks to the police department for their dedicated support, but it's important to recognize that this additional strain also impacts their resources. Our primary goal is to create a welcoming and safe environment for everyone who visits our recreation center. Unfortunately, I have witnessed it on both ends. Now, onto a personal perspective. As a resident of Alamosa who plans to start a family here, the location of the camp also directly affects my home life. My wife and I chose to buy a home on the south side and have observed noticeably disparity in a maintenance compared to the north side. Issues such as weed control, stray animals, and general cleanliness seem to receive less attention in our neighborhood. The addition of a homeless camp to this area has exacerbated some of these issues. We have observed increased foot traffic through our neighborhood with individuals pushing carts full of unknown items, which are sometimes discarded in our alleys and our yards, creating potential safety hazards. As homeowners, we should not have to build additional barriers or take extra precautions to feel safe in our homes, let alone our properties. It is essential to recognize that while not all individuals experiencing homelessness contribute to these issues, a significant portion of those we see walking with these items or dispersing of them on Ross, Edison, San Juan, and State Avenue, south side of the train tracks, I have noticed also frequent the recreation center, with a large majority of them listing St. Benedict's as their home address. I urge council to consider the voices of the community, not just the organizations that well-intentioned may inadvertently contribute to the issue. My family and I deeply value living in Alamosa, and I take great pride in my role at the recreation center. However, it is crucial to address these concerns before they escalate further. While I strongly support eradicating the camp in a whole, I am aware that this action will likely disperse these individuals into our parks, our trail systems, alleyways, and more.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thanks for letting us all be here. My name's Shamie Kearns, and I'm the office head of the local public defender's office. I've been in Alamosa for 6 years, and I have some thoughts on St. Benedict's. Our neighbors experiencing homelessness needed a minimum a place to sleep and store their things while they go about their days. And I think this meeting cause, just because we no longer have to provide that in the same way that we once did, does not mean that we want to be a community that does not provide those basics for our neighbors. The bare minimum is a place to sleep, a place to use the restroom, a place to charge a device so that you can have that access to the outside world while you're looking for jobs. There's some specific issues I think that came up that I have some experience with as a public defender. One is I've never represented a client here in the Valley that's told me that they've been bused here or they've moved here to access St. Benedict's or any of our homeless services. And that's in 6 years of service here. Safety has been brought up a lot, certainly an issue and a concern and something that we can work towards. But I think it's important to note that St. Benedict's has wonderful cameras, and frankly, as a defense attorney, getting a case that comes from there is much easier for the prosecution and the police to prove than it would be out in a neighborhood elsewhere. The costs of more police to enforce this in kind of a whack-a-mole way when the folks that live in St. Benedict are forced to find other places to live, and then the cost to the jail to house them are going to be astronomical. There is no way to keep those costs down. And the idea that we could fine or ticket our way out of this for our neighbors that are most struggling is magical thinking. I know that this is challenging for a small community like ours. I know that this is challenging everywhere in the country. It's not just us, but a new Supreme Court's decision should not be a race to the bottom in how hard we can make lives for those of our neighbors who are already struggling so deeply and so basically to be able to live in a safe place and have just a minimum standard of what life like that would look like. If there are problems, I believe that we can solve them. And we have a great community here that can come together and talk about the things that might not be going right there. But rather than scrapping that's something that's working, albeit with challenges, let's come together and try to fix those issues. Let's use this, as our neighbor said, as a stepping stone. St. Benedict's, it's not the end for our homeless community, it's the beginning. And let's connect those folks with the wonderful people I see in this room who are doing really good work in this community, in the mental health arena, with La Puente, and all of these resources that we can try to get them back on their feet. We cannot end homelessness here by kicking those who are already down.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jay Sanders, and I've been made homeless by county code. And so I know what it's like to not have a safe place to be when you're displaced from somewhere. And I understand the safety concerns of the residents around St. Benedict's, but I just really ask that you not displace people until there is an alternative for them to go. Everybody needs a place to sleep at night, somewhere to be on the earth, and just to move them around is not going to solve any problems. And so I just really hope that a thoughtful alternative is considered if they are removed from where these people are at right now. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's James Slovak. I think we really need to, I know we all are struggling with everything that's happening in the city with the homeless, but eliminating St. Benedict's, in my opinion, goes from 207 calls a year to what, 2,700 calls a year throughout our city? And goes from 7 fire calls a year to how many calls because people are now squatting or tenting in vacant homes or vacant lots. So we heard, what our potential future was as far as the costs were concerned to keep St. Benedict's, but projected, but, no statistics on how much, it's going to cost if we eliminate St. Benedict's. And as far as the electricity is concerned, if I go dry camping, if I go camping at a state campground and I rent a campsite, there's no electricity there. So maybe there's a different avenue for that. If someone got electrocuted, maybe there's a different avenue where the soup kitchen is, maybe there'd be a charging station. Or maybe there can be something where the county offices are close enough, where there can be charging stations that are monitored. But eliminating St. Benedict's, in my personal opinion, is just gonna put tents in your backyards. They're gonna be in your alleys. They're gonna be, this way, there's a place where it's affecting a minimalistic amount of people. Like, you have the warehouses that are on the back side of that now that have been vandalized and people are trespassing. Now you're gonna have people setting tents up in vacant lots there that now, my understanding is, I think we need more law enforcement. I think there's a request for more law enforcement officers in the city of Alamosa now. And our community officers are so overwhelmed now. How are our community officers gonna keep up and our police officers going to keep up with the calls if we displace everyone from St. Benedict's? Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Mike Gibson. I'll be very brief. St. Benedict's has served a very useful purpose. I would agree with the woman from the Public Defender's Office. Basically everything she said relative to the benefits having it. And if we do away with it, as the last gentleman said, these people have nowhere to go and they'll go back to the parks and the trails and we're back where we are. I think this community, you as mayor and council members and the city staff have done a very good job in addressing this very difficult issue. And the committee that Donna Wei talked about have to compliment them on their involvement in trying to address this very difficult issue. We don't have all the answers, but I think St. Benedict's is part of the answer today, and I think we should keep it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's CJ Hurd. I think that we should keep St. Benedict's because, like it was mentioned, there needs to be another alternative for these people to go. I was homeless once and I lived in my car and it was very difficult to find a place to park my car to sleep at night where I felt safe. And a couple times it wasn't so safe. So if I would have had a place to go when I was homeless, it would have been great. But we're talking about human beings who have different circumstances. Not everybody has family they can rely on. Or maybe the addicts and the alcoholics have run their ticket dry and family are like, stay away. And I understand that because I'm an alcoholic and an addict as well in recovery. So I know people can change if they want to. And when I was in college, there was this guy who used to lecture in one of our classes and he was homeless and he said the only thing that makes people homeless is overwhelming circumstances. So maybe domestic violence, divorce, medical reasons, you lose your job, your house burns down. I mean, there's a number of reasons that people get into a situation like that. It doesn't mean they want to stay there. But I think people in lesser circumstances need help just as much as anyone else. Because I know if we have a problem with family, we go to our family first, and sometimes we're turned away, but sometimes we're not. But not everybody has that lovely pickup. But anyways, I think that St. Benedict should be stayed, but maybe look into implementing programs for help getting into recovery from addiction. Maybe stage some AA or NA meetings there on a regular basis at a regular time. If you're going to build a soup kitchen, that would be awesome. I would be interested in helping with that and providing food myself. And maybe people that are getting jobs, they need work clothes. So I would be happy to help get them some work pants or work shirts. So, because that's a stress, if you get a job and they say, well, you need black pants. Well, you don't have any black pants, and you feel like everything's coming down. So take you to the thrift store. I'll get you some pants or a shirt. I just think people need a hand up and not slap down. That's all.
Thank you.
My name is Christy McCormick. I was born and raised here. I currently have a family here. I wanted to bring up on the slideshow that was presented earlier, one of the slides said that one of the downfalls to taking out St. Benedict's would be that it would cost approximately $80,000 a year. First off, I would like to know how we came up with those numbers, where they came from. But I also want to draw attention to the fact that in that same slideshow, on the annual operation to keep St. Benedict's running, I did the math on that. It comes out to $78,248 a year. That being said, that comes out to being pretty close to being a wash. My concerns here are, while I do feel for the homeless people, and I do agree that they need to probably have a place to go, I don't think that St. Benedict's is in a good location. I think that we need to take the $78,248 that are currently going into St. Benedict's every year and reallocate that money. I'm not entirely sure how to do it, but I do think that going to the services that the homeless people need to get them the help that they need, going to the police officers, the fire department, those are very beneficial ways that we could use that money. I also wanted to bring, I heard several points from people saying that St. Benedict's was a very safe place to be. However, in the same slide show, we saw that there are some pretty serious assaults and sexual assaults. And so I'm curious as to whether that's a general rule that the homeless people all feel safe there, or whether that hierarchy is making it difficult for them as well. I just wanted to bring that up since that's not something that anybody else has touched on. The other concern that I have is I've heard several people say that it's easier to get resources to the homeless people at St. Benedict's. While I can appreciate that, the gentleman that came up earlier also said that there's a drug kingpin at St. Benedict's. I personally don't know what's going on with that, but the question that I have is if our resources can go to one sole place to get the resources for the homeless people, are the drugs coming in the same way? I mean, there's drugs in the community. And if the sellers know, hey, I can go to St. Benedict's and there's people down on their luck and they're going to purchase from me, it's a one-stop shop. And that's a concern. The other concern that I have is for our kids. I volunteered as a coach for soccer and t-ball. And I went out and I combed the fields every night before practice, before the games, if we had a first game.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tammy Lepp, and I was born and raised here 53 years now. And I'm here on behalf of our youth because we are rodeo people and we do a lot of youth activities through rodeo. As of today, I withdrew my contract from the Park and Recs because I am afraid of our youth that will be coming in about 2 weeks for a huge rodeo. This is our 6th year of having it here in Alamosa. And this year, I honestly feel, I don't feel safe there. I don't feel that our 100 kids with their siblings are safe. That's like around 300 people that come in for revenue and stuff. And it's for 3 days. And I have had it at Alamosa Fairgrounds before, but this year I do not feel safe. For one thing, we don't know who is in that camp. We don't know every individual. There are some good, but there are some bad. How many child molesters are out there? How many pedophiles? How many people with warrants? We don't know this. The camp is 25 yards from where our trailers will be at. I don't feel safe with our youth being there. I agree with the Park and Recs. They come in and the homeless come in and they shower. They shower with our kids, with our moms, our sisters. I don't agree with that. I understand it is a public place, but it needs to be relocated. If it stays here, it needs to be relocated where there is no houses that can be burnt down. I live over in that area. I've seen the fires. I've talked to the homeless people when we are at the fairgrounds. They come in, they unplug our electricity that we have paid for the weekends to plug in their devices. I do not feel that that's fair. It scares our people. I know that Alamos Roundup did have problems with them. Theft, security, extra security. I have talked to Don Honeycutt, and yes, there was issues. And yes, it was the homeless. I'm not saying that they are bad, but they need to be relocated somewhere else. And somewhere where there's not houses, somewhere where there's not businesses that they're stealing electricity from, somewhere where there's not children, as in T-ball, soccer. That's what I'm concerned about, is our youth.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Desiree. I've been a San Luis Valley resident for 41 years, minus a couple of years I've moved away to have some fun. But I come back and I just want to say, I want to commend our community for even taking the initiative to have somewhere safe for people to go that are experiencing homelessness. And just like a baby, when they take their first step, it's not always a success. They keep pushing until they're off and running. And so I hope that that's the direction that we take with St. Benedict's. We can take all of the comments into consideration. It sounds like there's a lot of, if we keep St. Benedict's open, we should do this or that. And I'm actually excited to see where we take it from here.
Thank you.
Also, one of the most amazing people you have in this community just spoke. I also am at La Puente right now. La Puente? La Puente. I have a degree. I've been in childcare and child development and child psychology classes, and in probably 20 states in this country. And I'm not really quite sure how I ended up here tonight, because I was really more concerned about what we were talking about last week. This week, I did not realize that Tent City actually has another name. That actually gives me hope. I'm a little concerned that it has a hospital name, because I have been in the hospital, and I've also played women's professional tackle football for the New York Sharks. And I was in NYU once when they were saving a finger. And I was also in the emergency room less than 4 days ago, in which an RN, when I said, I thought that hospitals were a place of healing, she looked at me, she put her hand on her hip, and she said, no. And I said, you really don't believe that? And she said, no. She said, you have 2 minutes to get out of the room. I was asking for a lidocaine patch. I've had a torn muscle under this rib cage for almost a month now here in Alamosa. And aside from that hiccup, I'm just gonna leave it there. Alamosa has been one of the most amazing places I have ever spent more than a week in my life. And that's saying a lot, because I've been in some pretty amazing places, and I've been in some places where there have been police, such as my grandfather, who was a sheriff in Sheraton, Iowa. And what I knew of them when he was born and when he grew through the world, and he decided on Sundays, instead of doing his job, he'd go outside the bar and he'd pick up the humans that he knew was going to go to church next week, so that he could get them to the rest of their family. So when they woke up in the morning, nobody had to worry about how they're going to get to work, what car they were going to get to church in. And I would like to also announce, for the people who are speaking here, I don't really care where you came from, what color you are, or how many years on you are. You are talking about people. You're not talking about they, you're not talking about them, unless you're talking about my pronouns, which I'm still a little confused about. I would like to say, those humans are here hearing what you are saying. They are choosing to stay in this community. And I remember learning about a president who took a whole bunch of homeless people out of some city on buses and shipped them out. I'm pretty sure that was Chicago. It might have been Manhattan. But I know that those communities suffered because those humans weren't there. And I know from my experience, because I can't forget shit, which is also not fun when you're autistic and you're trying to understand how to put an A, B, C, and D and fill in a blank for the Iowa Test of Basic Skills. And that's how I'm going to show you that I mean more than they and them. We have water here. It is fresh. We are not in Flint. We have places where humans can take a shower. If you have a problem with the way that
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I have so much more to say. Thank you.
Hi. Okay, yeah, sure, you can press it. Sure. Hi, Amanda Pearson, resident of Alamosa, former municipal judge, city judge, Alamosa municipal judge for 18 years, Saguache County judge for 18 years. You cannot legislate and police a societal problem like homelessness. After I left the court, the city found out how expensive it really could be to use the courts to solve all your problems. The courts don't solve all your problems. They're not good at it. They can't solve social problems. You can arrest people, you can give them tickets and say, well, we're not gonna put them in jail. But if you don't show up to court, you're gonna go to jail for not going to court. Or if you don't do public service, which last I knew about cost money to sign up for, if you don't have the money to sign up for it, you can be in trouble for not going to jail. If you can't charge your phone and you can't keep a very good calendar, then you don't make it to court, then you do go to jail, and then the city has a judge budget. I would like the data on what the city's jail budget had been before they figured out how not to put people in jail for minor offenses. Jail is expensive. It will be expensive for the county. It will be expensive for social services. It will be expensive for everybody, like the brilliant young lady who did the research about it. It is an expensive proposition. You may just be spreading it out so people don't see it all the time. What I want to say is we had homelessness before we had La Puente. That's why it started. It's been going on in this community. We're a crossroads of two major highways. We're the biggest population center for a long district. We're frontier community, and we have decided, many of us, that we will treat people as people, no matter how down on their luck they are, and we will try to find ways to work with them. It doesn't mean it's not messy, and it doesn't mean that people are impacted. The last thing I know is that I lived on Cascade. I used to ride my bike through the park every day to go to work, and it got scarier and scarier and scarier because there were people sleeping in the pavilions. There were people sleeping under the trees. I'd walk on the path, and people had these funky little in the willows shelters that they had built, and that's just right behind my house. There's no easy solution to homelessness, but before you decide what you're going to do, make sure it matches with the outcome you want to see. Will this make things better? People won't disappear. Homeless people don't go away. They get pushed farther and farther into the fringes, and then they get pushed farther and farther from the opportunities to get out of homelessness. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Young, and I live and work here in Alamosa. When you're thinking about making this decision, I want you to think about what it would be like to have nowhere that you could legally exist, nowhere that you could legally be. We're not just talking about problems, we are talking about people. And people who, if this council closes the camp, will have really limited places that they can legally exist in our community. Getting rid of St. Benedict's won't get rid of homelessness. I think that has been well put here tonight. It will not make this community more safe. In fact, based on most of the numbers and the data we have seen from the people who've been up here talking to you and from your own presentation, it will make this community less safe. It will make it harder for people to get out of homelessness. Citing and fining and eventually jailing, because that's what criminalization does. If we are going to close the only place where people can legally camp, it will be a crime for them to be anywhere else. It doesn't fix any of that list of problems. It doesn't fix any of the issues that people have brought before you today. Crime happens everywhere. Drugs are dealt out of houses. I'm sure you read the paper. Domestic violence happens in mansions just as much as it happens in camps, and so does sexual assault. Pushing people who are living in one place to a different place doesn't solve those problems. It costs more. I think that's been well established. From my research, 10 years ago, it cost $63 a day to jail someone in Alamosa County. I imagine that cost has gone up in the 10 years we've had since then. And you've heard a lot of benefits. And so I'd ask you to think about those as much as you think about the costs. We know who is living at St. Benedict because they sign waivers. We have a centralized place for service. You've heard that from the service providers here tonight. So I guess I just want to sum up what a lot of other people have been saying here tonight and say, yes, in my backyard. Please spend our money on this. This will make our community safer. It will make our community better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Heidi Richardson, and I'm a little torn on this issue. We don't live in the city, we live in the county, and there's already people invading property out there. I mean, just mattresses and shopping carts, just trash. It's ridiculous. So I guess I am in favor of closing the camp. Just because, and this is going to sound really harsh, and I don't know that I mean it, in a inhuman way, but if you have a problem with bears, you lock your trash cans, you don't fill it with steak and invite them in. So I guess I have a question. As property owners, if this camp closes and they will disperse all over the place, what are our rights as property owners? I mean, what can we do? I mean, we can't just let them invade our property and trash everything. So do we have any rights that, we've been told that they've got 48 hours to get off the property and to take their stuff. Well, they don't take their stuff. They leave it there, they leave a mess, and then the property owner is there to clean it up. So can we just go in and, hey, this is my property, get off. They leave and we can burn their stuff. I mean, this is ridiculous to let them take over individual property owners' property and have no consequences, and property owners are left with the bill. So I would ask, that St. Benedict's is closed. I know this sounds kind of like close this, but it's going to be my problem. But I think we are attracting people here if there is a place to go. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Gary Gardner, and I will give you the rest of my information. I have been a pastor down in Conejos County for 24 years and worked to bring about a lot of the stuff that's been raised here, and I am very, very impressed with all the eyes that are still on us speaking, and on all of you who have come with great interest in seeing something done about homelessness and about what to do with the situation in our county. I'm living up here now. I look back on the crowd here, and I know a number of you as head chaplain of the hospital, and got called out at 2 o'clock in the morning or whenever on weekends or nights. I didn't sign up for that, but that's what they gave me. And so I know a number of you from that perspective, and a number of you who have lived down in Canales County and were subject to the little ambulances and such that we had there. And that was what brought this about with my back. But I appreciate the number of you who are really interested in doing something. And I'm available to talk to groups and others who are in need of somebody to stir them. And thank you all for being here and for showing your wonderful interest.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Christina Boltzanye. I have worked with folks who are living outside since about 2019, so before St. Ben's, and then after the implementation of St. Benedict's. I had a couple different directions I wanted to take my time, but I think I've figured it out because I brought some of the people I work with from St. Benedict's, but some of the things that they heard were a little hard for them to hear. So a couple people that were hoping to speak have chosen to not speak. So I'm going to kind of share some of their words, if that's okay. But one thing was that Tent City isn't great, one resident said, but it does to some extent contain some of the issues. And he said that if it was disbanded, it would really just disperse those issues throughout the community. Another one of our residents out there who has she has helped with Narcanine, any overdoses a lot of the time. She said that they have issues just like any other neighborhood does. Theirs just happen to be a little bit more intense. And she said, get it? They are living in tents. So, and then another resident today, I was speaking with her and she told me something. I'm going to directly quote her, if that's okay. She said, please don't take us down. Bear with us. Being homeless isn't easy. Could you picture yourself in our shoes? I know we are hard to work with, but it's hard to work with ourselves sometimes. We're just lost, confused, and trying to find our way to a better home. But this is all we have right now. Please don't take our home away. And another resident wrote this, her story while she was sitting in here, and I don't have time to share all of it, but I'm just going to share a couple sentences. She says, I've always done what I could to keep my head up, but all of this is just making me want to be done. And she, I believe, my coworkers have taken her back to St. Benedict's, but I do know that this has been really hard for a lot of my folks to hear, but I do really want to just express my appreciation for you all and for the community. Like, this has also been, as hard as it's been to hear and as hard it is for my folks to hear, it is beautiful to see the differences of opinions and all the facts and everything that I've heard. I'm really, really grateful to be here and be able to be a part of this community. Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys look really good up there. You guys getting tired? My name's Dylan Brown. I've been here in the Valley my whole life, lived in Alamosa, own a business here. It's a great place and I love it here. And I want to start off by saying that everybody's heart here is to help solve the homeless issue. There's two different perspectives, two different sides of it, but we all want to fix it. We all want to make our community better. And that's the heart here. I'd like to echo some of the thoughts that some of the people that live in that area and the rec center, and it is really close to the ball fields and to where kids hang out, and there's a lot of sports going on there. If you keep it, we got to look at a different location. That's just not a great spot. There's a lot of kids that are affected negatively by that. My perspective as a whole is that there's two ways to deal with that type of thing. And sometimes providing this type of environment enables people. We can't imagine that. I can't imagine that. I go home, I eat my food, I sleep in a bed, I have lights and electricity. I can't imagine it. But I do know, because I've grown up with a brother that's an addict, and I've seen what enabling can look like. And my fear is that it's enabling a continual population, and it's a detriment to Alamosa. I've had things stolen out of my storage sheds. I've had people that I've chased away from my business that have slept there overnight. I want to let you know my heart. I've sat down with these people. I've interviewed them. I've delivered pizza to them. I've taken the guys on the side of the road next to Walmart and eaten a meal at Chili's with them. My heart isn't to just get rid of them, but we have to find a better way. And we're doing the same thing that we've always done, and it's not working. It's just not working. We have to find something that's going to work. And I think it would be better for our community as a whole to get rid of St. Benedict's. But if we're going to keep it, we really got to consider moving it somewhere else. And that's how I see it. That's my perspective. So thank you guys for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vanessa de Herrera.
Can you pull the mic
Yeah,
a little
sorry.
lower? There you go.
Better?
Thank you. That's better.
So I've lived in Pueblo the last probably off and on 10 years. They did the same thing, more or less. They got rid of everywhere where all the homeless people were living, let's see, the hotels everywhere. And then it just got to be like a shit show almost in town. It's still really bad up there, and they have no clue what to do with it now. And so I think it's ridiculous to try to close somewhere down and not address the issue. I understand it's probably not the best place, but where do you guys think they're gonna go? Closing it down isn't gonna get rid of the problem. It's just gonna bring it into town, I feel like. So I feel like, sorry, give me a second. I'm not very good at this. I just think before you close it down, you should maybe think of other options, because it's not gonna go away if you close it down. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Ruthie Brown, thank you. I'm really torn, as I'm sure all of you are. Closing Tent City makes me nervous as all get out because of my business, and we've already had problems with people doing their hygiene things and drugs. My grandkids can't pull weeds anymore because of needles and things like that. So that's my biggest fear if you close it. Where will these folks go? Not only the police department, but the sheriff's department will also be on call. That being said, I hate grants. Grants are not free. Maybe they're free to you, maybe they're free to La Puente, but they aren't to me, the taxpayer. So we can get all the grants in the world, but what I would suggest, if you keep Tent City, do a better job. Apply for a damn grant and put a person out there 24/7. Put a little tiny home like what was built at Horizon Heights or whatever. Have someone out there where you have a little office, you have someone checking people in, you do the background checks. If there's an emergency, they can get help immediately. If you've done all of this money, and I know there's more than a few $100,000, there's a lot of money that's been spent on services and someone's getting it. So spend it on a facility where you can have someone working there and truly make a community. Get rid of the damn drugs, get rid of the prostitution, get rid of the assaults and the harassment, and help those people up. Don't enable them. Have a job corps out there. Hey, potato harvest is coming up. Can we take a bus out to the potato fields? I've worked the potato harvest. Why? We don't see that. And at my store, I've seen the shelter up the road for 23 years. It has gotten worse. I used to be able to employ people. I can't do that anymore because I am afraid. I can't take them to my house to work because they case my house. I can't let my grandchildren outside alone because in front of my own store because we're worried. So if you're going to keep it, do a better job. Stop, maybe if someone worked out there all the time, the police wouldn't have to be called. Maybe the fire department would have to be called. Maybe, and then hold the people accountable. Clean up their own dang spaces. They shouldn't be getting so bad that we have to have people in the community cleaning up, volunteer or not.
Thank you. No, you're not. You're not allowed to speak twice.
I've never done this, so do I have to say my name? Is that part of it? I'm Una.
Can you put the mic a little bit closer? Thank you.
My name is Una King, and I think I've been struck by how much I've heard of the like us and them mentality. I think we have to recognize everyone's humanity, and any solution to an issue that is around people needs to be based in compassion and, more importantly, in integrity. And I think I've also heard a lot of people talking about safety, and I think it would be a worthwhile experience to just think to yourself, if you are housed, how scared the people who are not housed might be when they don't even have a place to safely sleep. So.
Thank you.
How's it going? This is my first time ever coming up to this, but I just figured, I thought it'd be helpful to hear a professional's opinion, I guess, as far as it goes out into the field. I'm a licensed addictions counselor, a licensed professional counselor for approximately 15 years in the Valley. I moved down here because my wife said it was a safe place, is a good place to go to. I grew up off of Colfax up in Aurora, and what most people would consider the ghetto. And I wanted to raise my children in a safe community, a community without crime. And I have an interesting perspective is that my family and I left pre-COVID to go on a bus, and we went around the country and we were homeless. And so I had the experience of being homeless, going around the country, and I went where I was welcome. I went where there were resources that I needed. I went where there was a few places I went where I was pretty much told by the police I wasn't welcome and I had to move and we had to leave town. So I think, I know that there's a conversation right now, it seems like in the room, as far as people are concerned that they're going to spread throughout the community. They currently already, the police are migrating them away from the community already, and they're migrating them to a certain location. They would just migrate them out of town completely. And I know that seems pretty harsh, but my perspective as a professional is that community that we have developed there is not therapeutic. It's actually very harmful for the people that are there. In the same way that you can create fertile ground for different plants and different fruits, and we know that from an agricultural perspective, we're creating a breeding ground for addictions out there. So that's my main concern. That if we were to keep that community and make it into a therapeutic community, that would be pretty resource intensive. I used to do program development for addictions, and usually when you're looking at like a case management perspective, you're about a 1 to 40 staff to client ratio, and then also you're going to have additional law enforcement to make sure that those contingency management rules are actually followed. Overall, the burden on the community is just too much. We can't create a field of dreams because people will just keep coming. I mean, in another perspective, I know that people are saying they're not coming from other communities. I can tell you that that is false. Overall, we have, I would say, about half of the people that I talk to are being bused or shipped in here from different communities, or they're hitchhiking in here because they were told of our resources that we can provide for them. I have a torn perspective here. I've dedicated my career to helping people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
They do.
Hi, my name is Trish Cunningham, and I have a nice loud voice. It's been very hard for me to hear what people have been saying. So I'm a resident of Alamosa County. However, I live right next door to the city. So I own property just north of the State Street Bridge. To get to my house, drive north on State Avenue, drive over a bridge, and there's my house. So about 5 years ago, I was having problems with homelessness close to me. And so what I did is I ended up contacting Parks and Rec because I was picking up trash myself and I needed help. So a crew was sent over and a lot of stuff was cleaned up. And then secondly, what I did was work with the outreach person from La Puente. And so she also helped me to confront the unhoused people problem right next to my house. And so I think, so now I don't have any unhoused people camping out around my property. That's about the time it seems that Tent City was established. And so I found through my own initiative, putting myself in touch with the appropriate community resources and working with those resources, I have helped clean up my little corner of the world. And I'm wondering if that isn't one of the ways we can work with homelessness. It's probably going to take tiny steps, at least at first. And I think everything was helped by my personal commitment to a situation that was really important to me. I'm really torn on this. You know, it's a heartbreaking situation. I'm in favor, because of my own experience, of keeping Tent City or St. Bernadette's, because I am someone who actually benefited from having it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So do we have anyone else? So if this is the time to make your comments, because we won't be, once I go to the Zoom participants, I will not be coming back to the audience. So if you plan on having any comments, this is the time to do so.
Hello, I'm Luann Cheslock Skinner, and thank you all for being here. And as someone else said, I just really appreciate the diverse perspectives and living in a community where we can come together. And I know lots of folks on with all kinds of different perspectives here, and that is an honor. So I'm hoping that St. Benedict's camp will remain open. While I recognize that the conversation is complex and that there are many issues to consider, it is my hope that we all can remember to see the individuals who are staying there through the lens of compassion. I think, this could be my daughter or my dad or your grandpa or maybe your best friend. What if someone we loved was experiencing homelessness? Regardless of the reason, how would we hope that our loved one would be treated? So for me, the question is, what can we do that could help? To quote Wendy Moss, so be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rowena Martinez. I'm a resident here in Alamosa. We moved back here in 2001. And I just want to say that, yes, I'm torn between both because yes, we do have had a family member that was out at the camp by his choice. And I got to meet some people out there too that I talked to. Yes, at first I was a fear of getting out of my car to go and find him and stuff, but after a while, my fear kind of stopped because I think it's because of how I feel and how, my heart is that I was always taught never to turn anyone away. Your door is always to be open to someone. And that's how I've always grown up. And I've opened my doors to a lot of people that could not afford housing while they were going to school, or they couldn't get along with their parents and I didn't want to see them out on the street. So I took them in, even though I did have family myself. And yes, I had bills myself, but I still took a little bit of my own time and did that. So I just wanted to say that if you choose to close the St. Benedict's, please find another solution of somewhere else they may be able to go, because I'm going to tell you, I had to go to New Mexico a couple weeks ago for a funeral, and on my way back, I was alone, so I was traveling alone and I was getting cramps. So I normally don't go through Santa Fe anymore because I usually use the relief route, but that day I did. And I was coming through Santa Fe and I was shocked. I went into a little Panda Express to get something to eat. And when I came out, there was a gentleman right there at the door. He didn't ask me for anything, but he did have a sign. And it kind of spooked me a little bit, but yeah. And then as I drove through Santa Fe, I saw camps in front of Walmart. There was about 10 people camps just lined up in front of Walmart. And then I went a little further. There was a few other businesses that had camps out in front of their businesses. So I just wanted to make it aware that like right now, we already have people going around the streets and coming in the parking lots. I do work at Safeway, so yes, that does happen. And so I just wanted to say that let's try to find a different solution for them somehow, somewhere, and make it all a safe place for us, because it's sad that we have to close our restrooms up and lock them down for people, for customers. You can't just freely, us as employees can't go freely, but at the same time, we got to find a solution, and and it is a lot of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'll be brief. I'm Judy McNeil Smith. I'm a resident of Alamosa City, and I've been in Alamosa for over 32 years. I want to thank the City Council for taking such a serious approach to this, and to our city manager for pulling us together. It's a hard issue. I want to echo Luann, though, that we really have to look at the humanity of people. These are your brothers, your sisters, your kids, your grandparents. This is not a 19-year-old on the street. We've got more and more people that are in their 60s, 70s, have nowhere to go. I just hope that people recognize the humanity of people. There's not an easy solution, but I want to go on the record of saying I think we need to keep St. Ben's open. I agree with Ruthie. I think having more folks out there in terms of doing it, we could do better, but I don't think closing it is the solution. So I just want to go on the record of saying I hope that we keep it open and continue to work on finding adequate housing for all our residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Boy, it's kind of weird sitting on this side, but I don't know if it's me or it's my hearing, but I sat there in front and you can't really hear a lot of what people are saying up here. So to start off, I'm in support of keeping St. Benedict's open. You know, a little history is that we've always had homelessness people here. And what has helped us in the past was we used to get 20 below weather from Halloween all the way to Easter. So that kept a lot of people out of here. The railroad out there had a couple of box cars that they left out there, and some of the homeless went out there, lived along the river, and until that got labeled as the devil's place, that finally was cleaned out. That flushed everything out. We, like they was said before, these are human beings that we're dealing with. And if we don't have a remedy to help them, and mostly it's mental health and lack of housing. And even some of these people that can afford housing, they can't pass that background check. So those houses that we built out there, and I applaud the council, the council before and staff for taking that initiative to helping out these people. But if you can't find a house because of your background, you just got out of jail, or you've done some drugs problems, you got to find somewhere to survive. And I've been out there, and we haven't been out there cleaning. We've been out there maintaining. And I want to emphasize that, maintaining that place, because there's people that go out there and trash the area and blame the people that are there. You know, as far as needles and stuff, sure, I've seen a couple of them there, but people make it sound that there's stacks of needles everywhere. There isn't. Those people don't want to be out there. They'd rather be in a nice, warm place, but they can't. You know, once you hit the bottom, it's hard to get out of the bottom. So I like I said, if we can find a solution to mental health and more housing, then close it. But before that, I think you should just leave it open. So thank you.
Thank you.
Ryan Martin. There's a lot of bright minds and great ideas and a lot of efforts from city officials, enforcement, fire, everybody, public, and that's always awesome to see. We all know there's not a perfect answer. If there was, we wouldn't have put time and effort and, money going into these meetings and the land and the whole thing. From a perspective of a business and land ownership right down the road, I mean, we all have different views and opinions, and as well as being a big part of some big events in the city that bring people to town and locals as well. If it's deemed by, again, these smart minds and good efforts that it is more helpful than harmful, just as time goes on, as you will, attempt to budget to where it's not a strain on everyone else working their butts off as well. I know a lot of people are working their butts off in there to be better and do better, and that's up to the individual ultimately. Again, there's always ignorance on one side of the argument or the other, and it's actually both. Things that we don't know that you guys have to deal with that sway decisions and vice versa. But if it is deemed, hey, let's close this down and try something else, do something different, there is a ton of money in that land that is, for the most part, semi-undeveloped. Is there something profitable, useful we can do with that? I don't have a bright idea at the moment, but given its area to help the community if it does close. And like I said, a lot of good ideas, and I appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rachel Cheslock. As I've been sitting here, I've been thinking about this issue of safety. And I think safety is super, super important. I hear a lot of people talking about being afraid, people who live around the area, people who live there at the camp, who have some fear as well of their things being stolen, of being bullied by other people in the camp who are stronger, more powerful than them, and they're trying to get the possessions that they have. Fear of people who are around there. And, I was trying to think of a time in my life where I felt really afraid, and it was as a single mom trying to find the father of my child who was out at a bar. So walking there at 11 o'clock in the morning and walking into a bar, that was terrifying for me. I got a lot of very inappropriate comments and people trying to touch me because I'm a girl alone out late in a bar. Those are not people who are homeless. Those are people who have money to buy $7 drinks. If we are going to try to close down a camp and move a group of people because they make us afraid, then I would suggest that we close down all those bars and move them as well. So I won't be afraid of them. But I would also like to say, I play on the softball league, and I go out, especially like the month before softball season, and continuing now after softball season. My husband and I go out. I've gone out alone and do batting practice just all by myself because I love doing it. I have never, ever been approached by anybody, ever. I have never heard anybody on my team say they have been approached by anyone. I haven't heard anyone on anyone else's team say they've been approached by anyone. I've heard people say, I'm afraid because there are people back there. I would just encourage everyone as we look at this, not to just talk about people's fear, but to look at actual instances and actually gather data. And I also just want to give a huge shout out to people who have lived in the camp before, who are currently living in the camp, to come and share their story. And I really, really want to encourage the city council, before you make any decisions, talk to the people we're making the decision about. Make sure that they have a voice in this, because they probably, as we saw, some of them left because of the way they get talked about. So make sure that they have a safe place for their voices to be heard as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, so I'm George Kitt. I'm a resident of Alamosa and have been for my entire life. And building off of that, I'm so sorry that the folks from St. Benedict's weren't able to come up here. And so I felt that I should definitely come up and speak as someone who has experienced homelessness. St. Benedict's provides such an ideal place for people to get help and for people to be able to find that safety and find that community and to be able to get Narcan treatment, be able to have access to community resources they wouldn't otherwise have. And so like as a community member, like it is so important for me to be taking care of my fellow community members. And so I'm more than willing to pay extra taxes if that means that like people get access to more help. And like, I know that that's not on the ballot, but like, it is so, so important for me as a community member to be taking care of our most vulnerable population, which is the homeless population. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Question, do I need to say my name?
You can if you like.
Okay. I don't think my name is important as a message I want to pass on. I'm looking around and I have not seen a single Latino besides Matias. And, I guess. And I want to give a perspective as a migrant. I know a lot of these people that come in to the valley are basically migrants and they come with nothing, right? We were one of those people too. We came with nothing. We were here and we had nobody. On top of that, we didn't have a language. We couldn't pick up the language at all. That did not stop us from owning our own home, on creating some future for ourselves, on calling this our home. We left our actual home to make all this our home. So when I hear, I'm sorry, it might sound really pretty bad, but when I hear people saying, we don't have anything, we have it hard, this and that. When you come from a hometown like I did, where you're hungry every day, where getting help is even worse. And to come to this where there's plenty of help, all you have to do is give yourself a little bit of a push. Don't wait things to come to you. And things will happen. They will. I guess what it comes down to is comfortability. When you're uncomfortable, when you get to the point where you're tired of being hungry, you're tired of not trying to think of what you're gonna eat the next day, what you're gonna have for your future, what was a whole of your future if you don't make a move and you decide you have to move to a different country, and you get to the other country and you see all the help, what we call over here the American dream, you realize that if you just get comfortable, things are not gonna come to you. If you make the push, if you make the move, if you try really hard, things will happen. But when you're just sitting behind the camp, waiting for somebody to take care of you, things are not gonna change. They just are not. And me coming from a place that either I change my situation or I'm just gonna stay stagnant, I'll tell you what, being uncomfortable always is the big push that we need. So what I'm trying to get to is, as much as hard as it is for them people to be thrown out of their place, what they call home, and as hard as it is for us to maybe pay a little bit more money to take care of the situation, all that, uncomfortability, going through uncomfortable is what the progress is at. And I know that from my own perspective and from seeing all the Latinos and all the Hispanics that have traveled over here. Uncomfortable is the answer, and it will get us progress.
Thank you.
Good afternoon or good evening, everybody. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak on behalf of the folks out at Tent City. I wanted to let you guys know that we must not close down the Tent City. We must not close it down because those people's houses, that's all they have. Even though it's just a tent, but that's somebody's house. Can't do that to people. Gotta respect people, give people their value. I know sometimes it's hard, but we can fix this. We can't fix it all the way, but we can come together and think how we can come up. We can educate the people. I just started my job over here at La Puente about 3 months ago. I believe we can influence people and get people to work. I know because since I started working there, we're already getting people to try to find work. People want to go into the fields and do the work. They just need a strong support. We just gotta lend them some, just gotta hear. People will follow, people will listen, but you gotta believe in the people. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Caroline Burkhart, and I'm a resident of Alamosa and work here in the city. And I have had the opportunity to go about once a week, once every, or biweekly, out to St. Benedict's to help distribute supplies, which is kind of bare minimum in what we can provide. But through that, I've been able to converse with different residents of Tent City, as well as some people who have elected to not live there. And one of the things that I want to echo from other people is that Tent City is not a perfect place. It is not a solution, and it should never be anyone's permanent home, but it is a stepping stone to other opportunities. One story I have is of a resident of Tent City who had lived there for several months. As Matias just said, the tent was his home. But because of that, he had a place to store his things, and he did have a part-time job and was eventually able to move out of there. Even though Tent City does not provide perfect stability, it provides some stability. Another on counter to this, and I submitted this in a written comment, I met another resident of Alamosa who was unsheltered and had elected to camp elsewhere. And this individual spent so much time packing up their stuff every day, finding resources every day, cooking their own food every day, was also at risk, more risk for overdosing, being isolated from community. One thing that I noticed in the statistics was that it was talking about crime and lack of safety within Tent City, but there was no comparative statistics of, assault or things, calls outside, whether that be in the community at large or within the unsheltered population before Tent City was created. So I think that can sway people in kind of creating a false narrative because we're only looking at one set of stats. So I'd appreciate if others were provided. It is super cliche to quote MLK, but I'm going to do it. But he says, it's okay to tell a man to pull himself up by his own bootstraps, but it's a cruel jest to tell a bootless man to pull himself up by his own bootstraps. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So if there's anyone else in the audience who would like to make a comment, now is your time before we go to Zoom. Because once we go to Zoom, we will now be coming back to the audience, and then we'll be having our city manager and legal counsel follow up with some of the comments made tonight. And then it'll come to council and we won't go back and forth with the audience. So if you have any comments that you would like to make, now is the time to come up to the podium before I switch it to Zoom. Going once. Twice. Okay, we're moving to Zoom now. So Ms. Martinez, if you could give the Zoom participants instructions of how to raise their hands so that we can recognize them and give them their 3 minutes. And for the Zoom participants, we do have a clock. When we get to the 3-minute mark, I will ask you to end your comments if you're still talking.
Okay, if you're on the Zoom app and you want to speak for this, you will use the raise hand feature in the bottom of your screen. If you're on a telephone, to raise your hand, you'll dial *9. It looks like we've got a few hands raised, so top.
So I'll let you let them in, and we'll take it from your cue.
Okay. So we'll start with Emily.
So Emily, I believe you're muted. So for the sake of time, we'll come back to Emily. Who's next?
Looks like we have David Osborne.
David, if you would like to speak, now is the time to start speaking. It doesn't appear that you're muted, but we can't hear you. So do you all know if there's an issue on? There you go. Can you
How
try
about
to
now?
speak?
Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you, okay? All right.
All right. Good evening, Alamosa. My statement is in support of St. Benedict's project area in Alamosa. No doubt, this is a sensitive subject and popular debate within our community and on social media platforms. With the recent ruling from the United States Supreme Court, I would strongly suggest evaluating what we can and can't do as a rural agricultural community versus what legal precedents may follow. Isolating problems naturally increases our capabilities and allows a more focused and deliberate approach for service support. This is especially true for rural and frontier areas where resources, law enforcement, health services, behavioral health are scarce. Our focus should always be on the whole community, everyone, all cultures, all races, all religions, and all economic statuses versus segments of the community. Penalizing or citing those who don't prioritize legal conduct will simply fill our detention centers in the long term, thus increase costs, taxes, and this isn't a viable long-term solution. Researching a new approach and management strategy for St. Benedict's appears to be a much more achievable goal versus closing the location. Closing St. Benedict's would ensure multiple locations throughout the city and county of Alamosa may experience and realize this community issue. Keeping St. Benedict certainly won't solve all the related problems. However, doing something is usually better than doing nothing while having some control over the situation. Ruthie Brown hit the highlight: planning, management, and local control. We can choose to do this. We can minimize gang strongholds and provide management. We can figure this out, no doubt, if we invest the time and the resources. Lastly, I would gladly assist and support the city and county of Alamosa through volunteer management, support, and planning if requested. Thank you for the time this evening. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay, Abe Rosenberg.
Good evening. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm a former Alamosa resident and San Luis Valley lifetime resident. And I've spent a lot of time volunteering and working with nonprofits and providers in the area at St. Benedict's. And I wanted to share that this is a really good thing for our community. I know there's challenges, there's issues that need to be resolved. However, I don't think that it's a good idea to just close it. I think that that would set people back, set the community back significantly in resolving these issues. So there's a great opportunity here for us to hear the feedback of the community and find ways to provide other means for people to do things like showering, for example. I'm working on a project where we're going to be offering a mobile shower unit throughout the San Luis Valley. And so there's a lot of people who care and want to help. And I think that that's what makes the San Luis Valley so resilient. You know, we help each other out. I've seen people that I grew up with end up in really tough situations and even not make it for various reasons. And I think that I would not turn my back on them if they needed something. And I think that a lot of people would say that about any family member or friend. And so I think that it's important for us to remember that we can do some really great things with this space, or by, you know, continuing to improve it in some ways, even if it's in another location in the future. However, closing it is going to set everything back. It's not going to solve the problems. It'll make problems more difficult for everyone, in my opinion. I also want to just encourage everyone to not judge people at face value. I think that labeling a group of people can be really harmful, and there's no one person who can say they represent all of the unhoused. There's no one person that can say they represent all of Alamosa in the same way. And so let's remember that everybody's an individual and everyone's got their own story and their own thing that they're going through. And the people who are closest to them, like those who are running La Puente and those who are working in this field, they deserve.
Your time is up. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Mary Van Pelt.
There, unmuted. Hi. Is this going through okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm Mary Van Pelt, and thank you, Mayor Coleman, members of Alamosa City Council, and interested citizens. I wrote and submitted a written comment on the internet, and I'm only going to read a portion of it because after listening to everyone, some of these things are not relevant. But I've lived in Alamosa for 45 years, graduated from Adams State in 1981, and I was active in the community meetings at that time that did the groundwork to open La Puente as a shelter. And of course, the purpose of the shelter was to help alleviate the complex issues of homelessness and to address the fact that people had died from sleeping outdoors in the cold. And these issues are not new, as other people have stated. We still have them, and perhaps there's more of them. But I do believe in reaching out with compassion to this vulnerable population and not getting into the criminalization of homelessness, which was suggested. I read a summary of this Supreme Court decision and was quite interested in Sonia Sotomayor and her dissension, joined by two other female justices. And Sotomayor argued that the ruling majority by the Supreme Court focuses almost exclusively on the needs of local government and leaves the most vulnerable in our society with an impossible choice, either to stay awake or to be arrested. And they took that argument in a little different direction than what we have in Alamosa. But overall, I just support compassion for this difficult situation. I have worked with the homeless, and I've worked at the former community mental health center, now behavioral health, and other human service organizations in the Valley. So I'm in touch with some of the issues, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, Dave Hargis. Oh, wait, sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome, thank you. As far as the topic of St. Benedict's go, I think barring solutions or pathways that the homeless population can go to, I think it needs to stay, at least for the time being. As one of the other speakers said, we can change that in the future if needed. But without positive solutions, I don't think that's going to be very effective. Another thing I wanted to urge, and I thank the city council and city staff for having this type of forum and others, is to keep the lines of communication open. There's so much stuff our community doesn't know about these circumstances. They don't know how homelessness impacts people on the individual and the community level. And it's important to keep those avenues open and to keep sharing that knowledge. Another thing I would like to point out is, according to the city's website, we have a homeless coalition. And its intent is to help solve these types of problems. I look out there currently, and if the website is up to date, it says there are 5 openings. And I may look seriously at that, depending on what's going on. But I would urge other people who want to make a difference as well to look at these organizations and these committees that can help drive these decisions with meaningful collaboration and move that forward. The Homeless Coalition Board says the Alamosa Homeless Coalition Board is a standing advisory committee created for the purpose of discussion and identification of causes, effects, and potential solutions to the homeless issues in Alamosa. That's part of the quote. It's on the website. You can find it. But making this decision is one thing, but this is also really a homelessness problem. And if we're not challenging that problem more directly and just making short-term decisions, then we're never going to move forward in a positive and meaningful way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Judy.
Hi, I'm Judy. I wanted to talk about not only that
homelessness and the people, but the animals. I work in animal welfare, and we have to deal a lot with the animals from Tent City. And I do think that if we keep Tent City, which I support keeping it, and maybe relocating it sounds like not a bad idea, but working with the city and the shelter to try and get some more spay, neuter, and vaccine clinics going to make it healthier for the animals that have to live in Tent City. I know how important those animals are to the people. Sometimes those animals are the reason those people get up every day. And so keeping those animals healthy, I think, is a really important part of Tent City, and keeping the people and their residents safe by having safe animals in Tent City. So I would hope that that's something that we could look at together also as a city and as a shelter to try and keep those animals as safe as possible as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Teresa?
Oh, darn it. Hi. Sorry, I wasn't sure if it was unmuted. So I'm Teresa Ortega. I am a lifelong resident of Alamosa, born and raised, and I still live here. I'm also the executive director at Tucasa Inc., our local domestic violence, sexual assault, child sexual abuse resource organization. I'm in favor of keeping Tent City. I've been to other areas where they don't have a place for people to go. The one thing I would like to say is I do agree that there probably needs to be a little bit more done in terms of protecting not only animals, which I think is a great idea, but other vulnerable populations that are within that vulnerable population. And I'm speaking more towards survivors, victims and survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, human trafficking, and child abuse. We get people coming through our doors quite a bit. And a lot of times we don't actually know how impactful our services are, because you also have to take into account what's been mentioned, mental health issues or substance use issues, especially. But I definitely do know that it's probably the best solution, because if not for that resource and for that place for people to go, we'd have a lot more issues, I think, within our city, a lot more crime. But I definitely do believe that there needs to be a little bit more there for people to feel safer, especially people who are more vulnerable, women, children, even men. We've had men come through our doors as well, needing services. So I, as a resident and as a leader of a nonprofit organization that serves vulnerable people every day, would say that we need to keep St. Benedict's and put some more resources into it so that it can continue to help people and continue to keep these people in a safe place in our community until other, hopefully, solutions can come down the road. Thank you.
Thank you. So for the Zoom participants, this is the time to raise your hand, Ms. Martinez, if you can give them instruction one last time of how to raise their hand, because once we end the comments from Zoom, we will be bringing this back to staff to do follow-up, and then we'll bring it back to council. So now is the time to raise your hand if you would like to make any comments.
Okay, we have one more hand raised. Looks like, if you want to speak for this, you'll use the raise hand feature in the bottom of your screen. And if you're on a telephone, you're going to dial *9 and it'll raise your hand. Okay, so we have Matt Abbey.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Council. I didn't hear many comments tonight from anybody that I fundamentally disagreed with. I'm super appreciative of the council's work, but particularly the city staff for taking action tonight, but also on dealing with the issue when the prior court ruling came down that mandated creating a place for homeless folks to reside. I think that's the humane thing to do. A lot of cities did nothing, and that led to tent encampments on sidewalks. So I'm proud of Alamosa's work to do something where others didn't. So credit to the staff and the council there. As the operator of a couple of local businesses, I deal with the thefts and the druggies daily, but that's not really a new issue. As a Christian and as a Scoutmaster, I believe that we have an obligation to look after the least of our brothers. I would echo the comments of some folks that preceded me to continue to do that work. Perhaps not close St. Benedict's, but it might be time to apply some resources and apply some management and establish a framework for those who can exist within the framework to be welcomed within our community, and those who can't, they probably have to find their own way. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. So at this time, I don't see any hands raised. So this is your final opportunity. If you're on Zoom to make a comment, please raise your hand by using the raise your hand feature or the *9 so we can recognize you. Going once. Going twice. Okay, I'm turning it back over to staff for follow-up.
And Mayor, this is going to be quick. We've had a long night, and for me, I feel like the only real appropriate staff follow-up is if there was any confusion on any of the slides. And so unfortunately, the young lady that was concerned about some of the costs, there was 2 comments she made that made it clear that I went either too quickly or I didn't do the right format on this. So from an ongoing cost estimate, it is about $20,000 a year. I broke that out into the annual expense that has a subtotal of $16,200. Those are the actual cost we pay out. But then we also obviously have in-kind that ranges from $2,800 to $3,000. So if you add that $16,200 to the high one of $3,000, you're just right below $20,000. The other item I wanted to make sure that I talked about, because I feel like this is actually more important. She indicated on this slide that it says that if we close it, that we're going to have to hire more police officers, and those officers cost $80,000. That is not the intent of this bullet, and I think it's critical that you understand that. The police chief does not think he will need to hire more officers. He does not think this is going to be an increased workload. You can ask him questions directly. With everything in me, I want to believe him. And I do put a lot of weight on his expertise and what he knows. I just couldn't 100% turn off the fear of what if we're not able to stay on top of it. And so that's what this bullet is. We don't have a crystal ball, but I want it to be clear that this may not happen. There may not be pressure to add police officers. This is just, if it does happen, there is a cost. But the chief has assured me that he does not think this will happen. And so I want to make that clear for city council. So beyond that, there really wasn't any confusion over any of the slides or anything like that. You heard a lot of great input of people's experiences and their values and their desires. That's all I have for staff.
Okay, and just one before we turn it over to council. I think there was one other question that came up. If you can share, because I've heard this from other people. What are the property owners' rights?
And so I want to be clear, how we enforce certain behaviors within city limits may be different than the county. And so I can begin the answer from a city perspective, and I've got individuals who will correct me. But property owners have the right to control who's on their property. And if someone is on their property and will not get off, they should call the police, and we will work to get the person off. It wasn't said, and so I'm going to kind of try to maybe make an assumption here. There are times when there's vacant properties and individuals are on those. And so what has been explained to me is if it's within city limits, we will approach those individuals and get them to leave the property if the property owner has told us they should not be on there. Sometimes property owners are hard to track down. Sometimes they don't always say people can't be on there. If that campsite's someone's not there, then that is when we do have to post it, because we can't move people's property without posting it, type of situation. So the time that can get a little bit longer, and I don't know if it's 48 hours or what it is, but it's when someone's not there for the officer to tell to get off of the property. Now, this is within city limits. It could potentially be different out in the county. Did I say anything wrong? 72 hours. 72 hours, we would have to post it, type of thing.
Right, and that's not a law. I mean, the law is a reasonable time. We have picked 72 hours.
Okay, hold on. All right, and then just one other reoccurring comment came up from the audience. I just want you to address before we turn it over to council. The comments of moving it somewhere else to another location. Can you clarify what locations and how and why that particular area was selected and the limited amount of spaces that we have in the city to move a particular camp to? Thank you.
So there is some criteria that we looked at from a city perspective. One of the items we weighed is we're using public funds to do this. And this is an issue that the public's divided on. And so we wanted to try to minimize the amount of public funds that we needed to use. And so from that perspective, we started our look at the property the city already owns compared to having to purchase property. That's always something that could be changed and challenged from a future location perspective. The other criteria we used is that ditch area does provide on the surface what seems to be a natural barrier to the other uses that are occurring in that area, and it's right next to the industrial park. This doesn't feel good to those property owners who are in the industrial park, but when you look at it from a pure zoning perspective, you have residential, you have commercial, you have mixes of those, and then your industrially zoned areas are where you normally allow more uses that could have nuisances, such as noise, smell, those types of things. That's what that zoning is. And so when you look from a city perspective, that was the best we could do to get away from residential and other types of uses, and it was put closer to the industrial type of use. Now, that did create issues for those property owners, but when you're looking at it from a pure zoning perspective. The other consideration is someone might say, well, we've got the ranch, and look at putting something, at the four corners of the ranch. Well, one, you have more residential areas nearby, right up there. I understand those who live in the south, but they are separated more from this location than if we were to put it at some of the places on the ranch. And then the walking distance for individuals to access some of the services would be pretty significant type of situation. So those are the thoughts. None of it I'm saying is perfect, but those were the thoughts when looking at the location.
Thank you. 1 second. Okay, we'll go ahead and turn it over to council. And probably the easiest way to do this tonight is we could start either on this end and go all the way that way, or we could start over on this end and come. Okay, all right. So we'll stay. It's been Councilor Carson. So if not, we'll have to go with the light up your mics. Okay, go ahead, Councilor Young Vigil.
So a lot to process and soak in and take in. I've been up here for 11 years. I think this was the most crowded, most well-attended meeting I've ever been to. So thank you to the folks of Alamosa for coming out. I wish you all were to come 4 or 5 years ago when we put the Homeless Coalition together. Me and Mr. Carson were the first members of the city council to be on there as liaisons. And as time has progressed, him and I have both gotten off there and other people served as liaisons to the Homeless Coalition. So thank you for doing that. I want to add to your story, Heather, about the, as Mayor asked about why did we put it down there? If y'all recall, some of us were up here, that the first place we thought of putting the camp was in the big lot next to the cemetery. And we had a big discussion about that over Zoom, and we got hammered that it should not go there. And so we listened to the community and we moved it. I just took a few notes here. And so by my count tonight, there was 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 34 folks who said keep it. 9 people who said get rid of it, 2 kind of in the middle. And I was happy to hear from 3 people who are currently homeless, who are living down there right now. I wish there would have been more. I understand they left because they felt uncomfortable. I apologize that happened. My concerns are this is if we close it down, I want to reiterate that this was said earlier, is that we were getting hammered too about 5 or 6 years ago, 7 years ago, about people not feeling safe walking around Cole Park, not feeling safe walking along the dike, and that. So then we have the opportunity to make this camp and move folks out that way. And so now it's safer walking and doing recreational activities around the city. I am worried that if we close it, these homeless folks will be in my backyard, your backyard. And I do want to say that over time, I don't see it so much anymore as a south side, north side issue. I had a homeless person sleeping in my front yard about 2 months ago, and I live right by Adams State. So it's everywhere. And I'm glad that I hope that we can talk about this. And I hope you all realize that this is a really tough issue. And at the same time, I feel for and I am upset with the folks who live in the immediate neighborhood. The businesses that are just east of the camp who keep getting broken into, who there might be drug activity going on in their parking lots. For the folks who live right just north of the camp, right by, north of the ball fields and that, it's not okay that they don't feel safe either. So it's a fine balancing act. And I hope, here's where I'm just gonna go for it, that we should keep it, and we gotta put more teeth into the camp. We gotta put more, those folks should have to live to a certain set of standards down there as well. And if that means putting more money into it, I think Ruthie had a pretty good idea about maybe putting someone down there to live as a manager type. And the folks who live down there, it's not okay that some of them are feeling manipulated, bullied, if they're getting prostituted around, like that's not okay either. So we have to step up some things down there too. But I want to hear what you all have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Yanvi Hill. Okay, Councilor Krebs.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
And for those of you that don't think that we were listening, you should see the notes that we all took. They're all massive. So thank you. Thank you. I echo Councilor V. Hills. This is the most crowded it's ever been. And this is input that we desperately needed, because if we don't hear it from you, we hear it from Facebook, we hear it from a random email. And so to have all these thoughts and all these opinions in one place is truly beneficial and truly helpful. For me, I came on after it was already formed. And so one of the first boards I sat on to educate myself about the issue was the Homeless Coalition. And I learned so much about what everybody who came to the table and all the different services that came to the table were there to help and to assist. Having said that, I understand that there are issues out there. I am one that goes out there. I try to get out there every month for the cleanup. And I am there to answer questions and to help out where I can. And when I'm there, it's physically, and when I'm here, it's my voice and my presence. I do Ward 2, which is over by the high school. And I've had complaints about people in Carroll Park. If we didn't have this camp, it would probably be a continuous thing. But because 4 years ago, almost 5 now, we thought ahead. And at the time it was to ward off and to help around COVID. But because of it, it has become an established area that other residents in the community know that there is an outlet for folks to go that need that kind of shelter. And shelter, folks, is a basic need. And I understand that this is not a black and white issue. It's got a lot of overlap. It's got a lot of gray areas. But in that gray, I think we can find compassion, and I think we can find humanity. And I think that what we have right now isn't perfect and it isn't working, but I heard a few people echo it up here. It's a foundation and it's a first step. And now that we have that law behind us, we can put some more teeth into it and we can form it and make it what we want that fits this community. It might not fit every community, but it will fit eventually as best it can this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Cribbs. Councilor Jackie Veal.
I guess I looked at it in a different lens because I've been here all my life and I'm lived in the South Side all my life. And when it first was proposed to be on the South Side, I was completely against it because I was like, everything bad that's happened, or not bad, but negative, seems to always go on the South Side of town. But after being on council, I am the liaison for the Homeless Coalition, me and Jamie Dominguez. And we talked at length about this at our last meeting. And I think there was a lot of ideas on how to make this better for the people that are at St. Benedict's and to have compassion for the people. And so, we talked about, having more stringent rules, taking care of the problems that are out there, like the rodent problem, trash, feces, whatever. And we also talked about the safety of the people there, but as well, when they talked about how people by the camp do not feel safe, that really bothers me too. And so, I think it's something that's needed in our community, but I think we need to make it better. And we need to make it better for the community, the people around the camp, and for the people in the camp. And so, I feel like it's something that needs to be there in the community, but I think we as a city and as a council need to take a look to see how to make it better for everyone.
Thank you, Councilor Jackie B. Hill. Councilor Hensley.
Alrighty, so, there's a lot of things that were said that hit in a lot of different ways for me. One of the things I will say, and I think this has touched everybody in different ways. We all have our stories. I know for a fact that I was close to homeless, living in hotels, but definitely didn't have a home, just before I moved here. I was in a violent situation. I was blessed because when I got here, there was somebody who was willing to rent me a home, without a or without a deposit, things like that. So a couple things where it allowed me to start over. With that, I also have had drug addiction and homelessness in my family, people who are related to me, where I also see the idea that enabling is not a good situation as well. And that letting people who are not willing to try to help themselves, they need to figure out that situation. That one gentleman who talked about that, making that change, and I think that's really important as well. I also feel that idea of, I do have concerns that it is so close to the rec center, with kids, things like that. At the same time though, if we shut it down, I have even more concerns because it actually will spread out the homelessness even more. I think there is truth to it. It's not going to go away. We're, for whatever reasons, we're in this situation we're at as far as homelessness. You can start saying, obviously there should be more help for mental illness, behavioral health, things like that. So I guess looking at the big picture, and with this being said, is that our real choice is shutting it down and having everybody disperse or keeping it in one location. I feel at this point, I want it to be something, and again, if it doesn't work, it's something we can always still decide to shut it down. But that idea of definitely having more policies, more rules, people need to keep that place clean, take pride in what they have. And so really looking at rules for people to be there so that it truly is then a community, and that it sort of forces people to try to help themselves to continue to potentially get out of that situation. There was that gentleman who said he was there for 6 months and he was able to move forward. So I think in that sense, putting some policy, and I just keep thinking of Lord of Flies when I hear some of these stories. And I feel like that idea that there needs to be rules and policies so that it isn't something where somebody is, that they're not taking some pride and taking some responsibility for the situation. So I guess that's my 2 cents worth.
Thank you, Councilor Hensley. Councilor Dominguez.
First, I want to thank everybody for coming out. I know how hard it is to get in front of a podium and just speak. This is a class I facilitate with some of the leadership here in town, and apparently some people have a hard time speaking. So if you were one of them, congratulations. You've completed a very hard task just to get your voice out, and that's what I'm thankful for here tonight. St. Benedict's is in my ward. I am on the Homeless Coalition. I've been thinking about this for the past 3 weeks, doing my research on other cities, doing my research on everything I could possibly do, and I keep coming back to one thing, and for me, it's humanity. I work with a lot of kids and a lot of adults, and there were times when I wanted to throw in the towel in my leadership work or my mentoring program because some of the people I was working with didn't respect what I was trying to do for them or themselves. And I think that if I would have ever done that, I would never get the one call I get a year from multiple people who thanked me for just being there. Now, for me to sit here and let this sit with me again today, I understand how important it is to be there when people are ready. Now, with that being said, I have had people who have totally disrespected me and have stole from me and have not valued the services I've provided in not only my professional life, but my personal life. And once again, I was challenged to stop this work. But once again, there was one other person who thanked me every day that they're alive and they've gotten through something. So with that being said, I also want to echo some of the comments being made. We talk about vulnerable populations all the time. And I feel we have a vulnerable population that we really don't talk about, which is like the police department, city staff, councilmen, these property owners. Me as a city councilman, I haven't been here that long, but I'll tell you one thing that I will do is I take the comments that have come from a personal perspective around property theft and safety just as serious as I do homelessness, addiction, and anything else across the spectrum. I truly believe that the system has done more harm to us than any of us as homelessness, addicts, alcoholics, whatever we identify as far as people go, because we're not perfect. I think the system has did more to us than anybody has done to us, more than homelessness has done to us, more than anything I can think of. So from my perspective, we have to be ready and we have to put some teeth into this. And I want to echo that. It being my ward and me being on the homeless coalition, I will do my due diligence as a councilman, which this job is not easy. It's easy to come up here and talk about something and give your opinion, but when you all go home tonight and go to bed, I will not be sleeping. I owe it to not only my ward and the people out in Tent City, but the people who expressed concerns tonight about their own safety and their own property. Now, is this something that's gonna be fixed in a year? No. And if it's something that you're expecting in a year, you're gonna be disappointed. But I can guarantee you one thing, I will be monitoring this and I will be close to this. And I know that there's room for improvement and we have to do better amongst all the other things that we get called out for on social media, but we will do our job. That's why I signed up, and that's what I'm gonna do to anybody who talked tonight, whether were in favor or weren't in favor. I have notes on it, everything. So the information I could not do my job without. Once again, thank you for speaking, because now when I go back and I talk to whatever side, I have the homework I need to address what I plan to try to help facilitate in this very, very hard role. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Dominguez. Councilor Carson.
So I'd really love to have a bunch of great words of wisdom and all that stuff about this, and I don't. This is a rough issue. I came in here tonight with the intent of pretty much just, we don't have a choice. We got to keep it open. But people make some good points, and at minimum, if this place stays open, I want to empathize with you, Heather. I really do, but I don't think that we can do it without more people or more resources or more officers. I don't want to put it on the officers to do it the way they have to now. I just don't think it can stay the way it is. I deal with people every day who, know people at St. Benedict or are at St. Benedict, or, I talk to them a lot, and there's no, there's not really an easy way to shut it down. I kind of really, I want to, especially after hearing the guy that was talking about being a migrant, because enabling's enabling. I mean, we can't get around that. I do it all the time. You know what I mean? And it's a drag because we can't move forward closing it, and we can't move forward the way it is. So, I appreciate the input. I appreciate everybody being here, because yeah, this is the most well-attended meeting that I've seen. It shows that everybody cares about this issue in one way or another. And the one reason I've stayed around here is because it's the best place I've ever been. The people are the best. The valley's the best. We live in a utopia. I've said it 100 times. I tell people all the time, and we were threatened every day by outside pressure, outside influence, outside negatives. I don't think we look at the positives enough, but we definitely as a council have a rough go here. This was opened and created primarily to keep us out of lawsuits. That's why I pushed so hard. That's why I dug because cities around the state and around the country were getting sued constantly by people that had the right to camp. And that was the main reason I pushed. Because again, I've enabled enough to where I've jaded myself to the point where I don't want to enable anymore. You know what I mean? It's kicked my butt in life, personal life. And continuing to do it as a community is also hurting us. The guy that said he was homeless, who had been pushed out of places and you know, he's a counselor, that was a pretty brutal point there. But I just don't think it can continue the way it is. If there is, you know, this hierarchy and this bullying going out there, we need people that are dedicated there to fix that. Now, I don't know if that's a popular idea or not, but we just can't continue the way it is. We can't leave it like it is. If it is gonna stay, there has to be some significant change. And as unpopular as it is, that costs money. And, you know, again, if somebody out there said, oh, you know, I'm okay with paying more taxes to help vulnerable populations, I'm not necessarily okay with that. You know what I mean? I do it all the time. I have a lot of kids. So they do take advantage. They tend to take advantage. I'm talking about my kids, you know, and I think anybody you enable will do that. And unless you do help them understand that they got to help themselves, like the guy said about being uncomfortable, you know, they won't. Nobody will help themselves. If you got it cushy, you know, I hear people tell, I heard Mr. Warner tonight say about recruiting people in. I've heard people say that 1,000 times probably. All you have to do is Google homeless services. We're Alamosa. It's A. We come up first. You could be in Oklahoma or Albuquerque. You're still going to find it. You know what I mean? And so we're not recruiting people in. And if they are, that sucks. I mean, we can't prove that. We've tried as a council. We've dug several times. But we can't continue the way we are, guys. We can't. This camp has created issues. The lady that lives there and is getting people knocking on her back door, that sucks. I got big old cane corsos for that reason, because I live the yards in the camps in my backyard. And I don't want anybody in my yard messing around, homeless or not homeless. You know what I mean? People steal whether they're homeless or not. That's the reality. But the camp can't continue the way it is, positive or negative. You know what I mean? You know, I'm not going to sit up here and say that I'm going to push you guys to close it or anybody to close it, but can't leave it like it is. We have to do something different. The input tonight helped. I think the primary input for that change and for the changes we need to make has to come from our PD and the people dealing with it every day, what their input would be to structure it. The people at La Puente that help us with it have to put more input. We talk a lot about collaboration, and this one's going to hurt, but I don't feel like when we're collaborating, everybody's getting their butt kicked like city and the city council. You know what I mean? So if we are going to keep it open, we do need more input and more collaboration and more, you know, people helping. I hate the boots on the ground thing, but we need people helping, you know what I mean? Because when we're getting our butt kicked about it, it's us getting our butt kicked and people pointing their fingers at the city. And I don't have a personal Facebook for that reason, I'd already been sued for arguing on Facebook. So I just don't. But guys, we got to do something. And as a community, everybody being here has shown that we, you know, whether you like it or not, we got to do something. Homelessness ain't going away. It's only going to get worse. Money's getting harder to come by. And I don't believe that, not knocking Lance, but I don't believe that our numbers are less. I mean, whether we have the camp or not, but we got to do something different, guys. You know, keep it, morph it, make it more humane, because it doesn't sound like, you know, it is all the time right now. So, yeah, that's it. Sorry for ranting.
You're good. You're good. Thank you, Councilor Carson. So I'll wrap up this first round because I'm quite sure we're going to have more comments on this first round. First of all, I would like to thank everyone who's here tonight and all those participants on Zoom. You being here shows that you have some concern and you care about the homeless situation here in our community. I also would like to thank the staff. They put a lot of work and thought behind a lot of things that we implement in this city, and sometimes I think they don't get appreciated enough, or the appreciation is not shared. I believe people like to maybe probably tear them down and try to encourage and build them up. So I want staff to know that we greatly appreciate all the hard work and effort that you put into making sure that council is informed and council has several different options when we're trying to make tough decisions. I want to thank the community members. It's really hard being out there in the audience and also on Zoom. And like Council Carson said earlier, it's really tough to come up to a microphone and speak. So some of you probably felt like somebody had already said what was on your mind. I want to thank you all for being orderly. One thing that we try to pride ourselves on, we're trying to be an example in the United States of America of how to run a meeting. You all were very respectful, you were thoughtful, you were mindful, you were considerate, you did not disrupt, you did not try to silence anyone. You allowed them to get their 3 minutes, and that's what a good community should be, open to listening and listen to different opinions. I want to thank you all for helping us. For those of you who made recommendations and made comments of finding common ground of how to find solutions, because the easiest thing to do is to complain. But to hear you all bring solutions to the table, that means a lot. That's what council needs to hear. And I want you all to know, as a council, we hear you. You've heard 6 of them, and now me talk about we hear you. We hear you even when you post stuff on Facebook. We hear you. So we don't want you to think that your voice is not being heard. The other thing is moving towards a solution. It's challenging. It's really tough to sit up here and know that our police department have to deal with violators and offenders out there at the camp, and they have to make repeat visits out there to keep things under control. It bothers me. I don't like it at all. I don't like that they have to do that. I don't like that we have an element of the population that disrupts normacy for people who are trying to do good. But I think that at some point we have to find ways to move forward with what we are working on. And there are going to be some people in our population that may refuse help. And if they refuse help, that's on them. But we want to make sure that we're offering the services for the people who want help. And the good news is that for those people who may want help, we may have a way to make sure that there are resources available for those people when they decide to get that help. With as far as accountability, I heard that a lot. Accountability for me means a lot. If we decide to keep this camp open, I really would like to make sure that we hold people accountable. And I'm gonna ask our attorney here in a few minutes, what are some of those things that we can do? But I strongly believe those who are offenders and violators, who are repeat offenders and violators, they need to be held accountable. And whatever that maximum accountability needs to be, I believe that's what we need to implement. And if that means that at some point in time, that accountability will cause a person to have to deal with consequences of their actions, so be it. That's what it needs to be. And if accountability requires somebody and makes someone decide that they no longer want to live in this community, that's on them. So be it. But we need to make sure that we start making sure that there is some form of accountability. So now I'm going to turn it over to Eric for a question, so that we can make sure that we all are aware of what we can and cannot do. Just about every council member mentioned, if we keep this camp open, what type of teeth can we put into it? What can we do to hold people accountable? What does trespassing means if we implement some type of rule to where if they are violators or offenders and they trespass, what does that look like? What can we do to make sure that we thin out the crowd of people who are offenders and violators at St. Benedict's?
Well, that's a complicated question, Mayor. There have been a lot of comments tonight about issues at the camp that might be better addressed if there were more structure. And certainly one of the fine lines that the city has walked at St. Benedict's has been precisely, it was a place of last resort. It was where When you have to go there, they have to take you in. And that's pursuant to non-binding authority, but a lot of direction out of that Ninth Circuit decision concerning Boise. That made it difficult to kick people out of the camp for violating rules unless there was something particularly egregious, because that St. Benedict's was the place of last resort. That legal structure has changed, and so St. Benedict's still may be the place of last resort, but the city doesn't really need to keep it available in the same way that it did before. And that means that there can be stricter rules. They can be more strictly enforced in terms of people who get trespassed from St. Benedict's and can no longer be there. Again, everything is balances. So that comes with the downside of now you're dispersing the most problematic people out of St. Benedict's somewhere else. And is that somewhere else other public spaces in the city? No, because we have the no camping ordinance. Is it somewhere else in the county? I frankly don't know what the county has by way of camping on public property or rights of way in place, or what their enforcement mechanisms are. So everything is to every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So there's a lot of things to balance when you do that. But the legal framework in terms of available remedies of trespass from St. Benedict's and of, as you'll discuss on some of your upcoming meetings with the public hearing coming up on ordinance, I think it's number 17, which is the restructuring of when does a crime become jailable within the city of Alamosa, would apply there as well.
And Mayor, so from a non-legal perspective, when we were making this recommendation, and that's the only recommendation I had to council, I don't have one on to keep it or not keep it, but it was if you do to enhance those rules and add more teeth type of situation. And so, you know, we can require the cleanliness bar to go higher, any viewing of illicit drugs and all of those things to be much more strict. You can just go down the line. We could also have potentially requirements that we want you to be engaged with services and that you're making some efforts there. What I'd recommend to council is if you decide to keep it, think through some of that yourself, but we also do have the Homeless Coalition. And so this could be a very good task to ask them to brainstorm on what can we do to make those rules to enhance accountability. And, you know, to some of the other comments, we can't keep it going the way it is type of situation. And so that would be a very good group to do some brainstorming to bring back to council if you decide to keep it and want to head down that direction.
Okay, so what you're saying, if council in our discussions here decide by consensus, because we're not voting or anything like that tonight, but if we have a consensus to keep it open, then have another meeting that talks about the enhanced accountability rules and regulations.
So yes, and what I would recommend is the Homeless Coalition, they just went to every other month, but they maybe need to go back to their monthly meetings to process on this. And so it may be a few months before they have recommendations that they really feel have been vetted and comfortable recommending to you. As I took notes, to me, it seems the numbers are on the side of keeping it, but needing to make changes. If the numbers were on the side of not known or wanting to close it, then we would place it on your agenda for you to actually vote on it. We don't need a vote as it relates if we're going to keep it type of situation. But if you do want to task the Homeless Coalition to come up with rules and things like that, we can always bring that back to you then in a meeting, and you can finesse what their recommendation is to you.
Okay, and would those enhanced accountability rules go through Eric as well to make sure that the city's not held liable for any of these things that we try to implement?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, council. So what I'll do is I'll recognize any mics that if anyone has any additional comments that you would like to make at this time, feel free to turn your light on and I'll recognize you to say whatever you like to say. If you all feel like it's time for us to get a consensus of who may want to keep St. Benedict's open with some teeth and some accountability measures and making it that way, please let me know. Councilor Young-Vigil?
I think we should go that route, Mayor, and I would also like to add enhanced security and patrols or something along the lines for those businesses and the people who live right there, that they feel more safe in their space.
Thank you, Councilor Young-Vigil. Councilor Krebs?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just making some notes. Having sat on the coalition, I feel very strongly, yeah, that's the perfect place for this to land. But I know that our local police also sit there, but we only have one person. So I'd like to invite Chief as many input that we can get from you and your staff and the officers. I think that's so important because they see it every day. And so I think that has a heavier weight than the wraparound services at this point, just vetting it out. I want the city to be a good partner to the community the residents here, the businesses, but also to the county. And realizing that in our discussions tonight, those that leave St. Benedict's, or once we get, as we're saying, more teeth into the policies around it, the ones that won't leave the area are just going to push out into the county. So I think it's important to keep that in mind and try and be as good a partner to the Alamosa County and try and work with them as well with this issue, because just because they move a few miles out of our bounds doesn't mean it has gone away. And the only other thing is I would love to see, and I'm dumping it all on the chief, I'm so sorry. I would love to see the Neighborhood Watch program up and going. We've seen a room full of people here that want to be part of the solution. They have suggestions. They stand ready to help. And I think that might be a good step with law enforcement for engagement. And I know I'm more than willing to help with any meetings in my ward with that. But I think that might help some dialogues as well. Thank you.
Mayor,
Thank you, Councilor Krebs.
I don't want to throw any curveballs because it's 9:42. But while we all worked on this presentation to make sure it contained all the data and all of those types of things, we didn't practice giving it together. And so I know from conversations with the chief that if you were to ask him, and he is sitting right here, he would probably tell you, speaking for the department, they'd recommend closing it. And since this meeting really is intended to be gathering all the input, just because we didn't practice and we weren't as smooth and he didn't say everything he probably had been thinking, it feels like a point in time that you need to have all that information. And so he is here if you have questions.
Chief, if you don't mind, can you just keep it real with us and tell us how you feel?
Absolutely. So first off, I'll say this is not a police issue. It never has been and never will be. Never should have been. But I will tell you this, we are absolutely at the forefront of this issue, and we are caught between the proponents and the opponents of this issue. Some say we're too harsh, some say we're too lenient. But I will just ask you this, come spend a day with us. and see what is really happening out at that camp. The frustration our code enforcement, our co-responders, and our officers deal with every single day. We bend over backwards to point people at the camp to the resources to help them with the issues such as mental health and drug abuse. Yet a large portion of them do not want help, and they refuse to even listen to what we have to say and or what we're trying to help them with. As I and I'll reiterate this, homelessness is not, it's not a crime. But all the violations that go with it that they're committing, those are crimes. And whether you're homeless or not, those are crimes. St. Benedict's is a hotbed, is a concentrated hotbed of criminal activity, disorderly violations, and it's a complete environmental disaster, plain and simple. In the short 3 months that I've been here, the occupants have destroyed the fence, set fires, destroyed the electrical box, established a hierarchy of the camp, bullied the most vulnerable, and created a community of disorder, trash, and chaos. We are placing people in an environment they do not want to be and follow the rules. They refuse to follow the rules. The majority of them fail to follow the rules. But at the end of the day, we will do whatever you guys tell us to do, because that's professionalism and that's what we're going to do. We're going to follow the policy that you decide. But I will tell you, as a group, we encourage you to close it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Counselor Hensley, he said as a group, he encouraged us to close it. Counselor Hensley?
So I have
She's got a question for you.
I have a follow-up.
And then one other thing, because Ms. Sanchez brought this to my attention, and I want to make sure I'm mindful and respectful of staff before I go back to council on what we're trying to figure out here. I see other staff members. I don't want to put any of you on the spot, but now is the time for you to speak up so we can hear. I mean, your voice matters, and in order for us to know what's on your mind, you got to tell us. So, Councilor Hensley, to your question to Chief.
Yeah. So with that being said, thinking through, obviously you don't have a crystal ball, but if it gets shut down, how do you think that'll affect the police force?
Well, I've thought a lot about this.
Okay.
Prior to 5 years ago, there wasn't a homeless camp. There was nowhere to go, and the police enforced it. They moved people along. The ordinances and stuff that they had, they enforced those as much as they could with the personnel that they have. I think we're taking a smarter approach with some of the ordinances that we're trying to pass that we've brought before you guys, and some of the ones that we're going to bring before you, like no sit and lie. So really, I don't think we're going to go that much different than we were 5 years ago, right? We're going to be enforcing exactly what was done 4 or 5 years ago. This was really built because we had to give them a place to go. We're going to go back to enforcing it the way it was prior,
And
with some better teeth.
I have one more question, so I'm going to put Andy on the spot. And so Andy, obviously with the rec center being right there, do you mind sharing your thoughts?
Well, sure. Yeah. I think it's important to clarify, like professionally, programs have not really been disrupted, just to be clear. Youth soccer games haven't been stopped because of residents. Sure, there's plenty of fear, but then when we get into operations, certainly there's been impacts, right? Mainly shower use or maybe other members or what. But I think that's what I want to share is just facts with you guys, not opinion. I trust my team here, you know, and the city's a team, so hope that's enough.
Okay, is there anything else you wanted to comment on, Andy, at all?
Nope.
Okay. And I'm not trying to put any of you on the spot, but Harry or Chief Stone?
I think I feel like I'm put on the spot, Mayor.
Okay. Intended.
you know, my staff and I, we deal with just the consequences of the camp, trying to mend the fences, maintain or build the expansions, things that are needed. So, it does drain on our staff resources, but it's not a constant. It's more of, every once in a while. So that's really about it.
Thank you, Harry. Appreciate it. Chief.
Mayor, the fire department will naturally continue to respond if it's going to remain open. But like others have said, if there are more teeth involved, the propane cylinders, the diesel fuel heating system, some of those things, they were great efforts to provide for heat, the open cooking. I think just having more teeth would reduce the almost 9 calls per year to that small geographic location. But we'll just do our job based on your recommendations. And the teeth are definitely going to help reduce those responses out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Ms. Martinez and Eric, and then I'll wrap it up with Ms. Sanchez.
I don't really have any thoughts to share. Not my role, but I am curious, Chief Dingfelder, on your thoughts apart from closing it, if there is greater a requirement for greater adherence to more stringent rules than we currently have, how that plays into your thoughts.
So I've actually considered that quite a bit. If we increase the accountability and the responsibility, this is just from experience in the short 3 months that I've been here. I really truly believe within a year, there will be very few residents out there because they can't follow the rules. That one way or another, you're either going to close it and remove them, or if we increase these rules and stuff like that, it's going to be very difficult. And if we're strictly enforcing them, which it sounds like everybody wants us to do, and to make this, to clean this up, I'm telling you, there's not going to be a lot of people left out there because the majority of them can't follow rules. I don't have any facts on that, but just from the experience of the officers, it's going to be very, very difficult for them to follow the rules and stay there.
Did that answer your question? You're good? Okay. Ms. Martinez, did you have any comments? Okay, no. All right, I think I got all the staff. Okay, so I think we finished with Councilor Jackie V. Hill was next.
I don't know, like I said earlier, there's definitely pros and cons to keeping it and shutting it down. But I do believe that the residents deserve to feel safe where they're at. So I'm agreeing with you on saying that we have to do something to make those residents around that camp feel safe, and then the people in the camp feel safe. And I think we could come up with some sort of rules or whatever we have to through the homeless coalition. I mean, I think we can work as a group and see if we can come up with those things that might help make it safer for everyone involved.
Thank you, Councilor Jackie V. Hill. Councilor Hensley.
Wow. I'm really pondering. I'm not sure if I'm at a decision, because I really feel like if we so my thought was putting those rules into place so probably I was doing the same thing that Chief was saying, was that obviously those who can't follow rules would leave, thinking that was sort of then allows for those that are actually using it for a step would work for them. But then would it be better just to rip the Band-Aid off and shut it down? So, I'm not quite there yet, so I need to think, to be honest.
Is that a question you want to pose to the chief? Because he's here. I mean, this is what we're doing.
I think he answered. That actually answered a lot by him saying that the rules, and because that was my thought, was these rules would help the situation, which I think it does, but it does chase everybody out. So it's going to have sort of the same effect regardless. So I just have to I have to still sort of process now, to be honest.
So Chief, I'll ask you the question. In your opinion, do you think it's better to rip the Band-Aid off? Or do you think it would be better for us to go down the road of trying to see if we could put the teeth in? And what are the pros and cons of both options?
Yeah, I mean,
No, he's here to answer questions. That's what Ms. Sanchez. So let him answer my question, and then when your turn comes, you can ask him your question, okay? So, Chief, go ahead.
So again, what we're hearing is that it needs to be cleaned up, that we need to tighten up the rules. And of course, like I said, we're going to do whatever council tells us to do, right? But if you say we're going to tighten up the rules, we're going to tighten up the rules. We're going to follow what you're telling us to do. And I'm telling you from the perspective of seeing it every day, that I really feel that within a year, if you keep it open, that there will be a lot less people there because they will not follow the rules. So to rip it off now and move everybody out, I mean, I don't know. That's really not an easy question to answer, because again, this is speculation on my part that they won't follow the rules. I just don't know what it's going to look like in a year, but just seeing what we've seen, it's going to be very difficult for a lot of them to follow the rules, and we're going to follow whatever directions we're given, and that's what we're going to follow.
Thank you, Chief. Counselor Carson, you have a question? Okay, sure. We'll go with Jamie and then Counselor Carson. Go ahead.
I just want to say that as long as the lines of communication are open between staff and us moving forward, this is something that I don't think was really pushed for or entertained too much before this day. And I really hope that if there is, I know there's still some people here from St. Benedict's, but I really hope everybody understands, not just on our end, but on your guys' end, the importance of this conversation, that it needs to be taken back to Tent City and needs to be talked amongst your groups, that this is a very hard conversation and we are all here doing our jobs to assist both sides. So I hope this conversation carries over in all places, not just in this room, because I think the respect is owed not only to us as councilmen and staff and police and you guys as a vulnerable population and whoever else is in this room. I think respect goes a very long way. So I hope when we're in our own private rooms, all pieces of this conversation are explained, not just your opinion side. And this is for everybody, not just whoever you feel you are. Historically, in society, people will come, engage in a conversation, talk about collaboration, but when they get back to their silos, it's not truly represented. So we are all truly here working really hard trying to figure this out. So I hope this conversation, the stresses, the remarks, the frustration on everybody's side is reflected in all conversations when you leave here tonight, because this is very serious. And there is a timeline on everything. And it's not a joke. It's really not. And if somebody doesn't understand where you're at, fine. But there are people who understand on all aspects where we're coming from. And I just I can't express how the lines of communication are open now and they will remain open. This wasn't there before. So it is very serious on both ends. And I just want to say that, like, this is hard for all of us. We all have a stressful job to do and none of us are winning here right now. So I just want the conversation though to be respected and carried everywhere. Back at St. Benedict's, all things, not just what you favored, what you heard, same with staff. Everybody needs to respect everybody's talks here.
Thank you, Councilor Dominguez. Councilor Carson?
My issue earlier was that I think we're pushing for a consensus that might not be here yet. And I don't know that I'm ready to do that right now, especially, I threw it at the chief earlier. I wanted input from him because I figured if we were gonna have a structure change, we needed input from them, and we've got their input. The other issue I have is that one of the reasons I left the Homeless Coalition, being frank, was that I'm not a person that can wait 7 years for a solution and talk through 86 conversations about feelings, and everybody has feelings about this issue. Everybody does. And if we are gonna put it to that board, things need to happen. You know what I mean? Like, we can't wait a year to come up with a solution or changes. Now, I just don't think we're at consensus, because I feel the way Liz does. Listening to the chief, these are the people that are looking out for us every day. And again, I know people that are out at St. Benedict's, and just like Jamie said, you guys got to talk about it there. If there's no structure and no pride in where you're at, and you can't look out for each other, and you're going to take from each other, then there's no need for that place. We're just creating a cesspool. You know what I mean? You're hurting each other, and you're hurting the neighborhood. And Jamie just took that ward. I was in that ward. I was in there when that camp from inception, and it was tough. It's still tough. And the conversations, like he said, they have to be had there. Right now, I don't think we have a consensus. Like, I can't in good conscience tell staff, hey, I want to keep it, because I'm not sure yet. Unless the Homeless Coalition has a really good plan that has been worked through with everybody involved and it looks positive, I think it's pointless, because again, if they're not going to follow the rules, then we're going to have to create a quota. Once we get below 5 people, we have to shut it down or whatever. It's going to have to come anyway, if that's what we get. Right now, I think it sucks to shut it down. I think it will push people in other directions, but I don't know that we have a consensus. I don't know how I feel yet. Like, I came in here with one idea, but listening to everybody's input, that's why we're here. We got to take input and then go think about it. I'm not ready to make a decision right now. I'm really not. And if we're going to make one, we need to hear from some people at St. Benedict that, they really want to be there, because everybody says they feel safe. We only heard from 2 of you guys tonight. You know what I mean? And I just need more info. I have the info I need. I just don't know how I feel about it yet, to be honest. I really don't know. I would really like to close it and get people moving forward, because like I said, I've enabled a lot of people, and you don't help them. They just keep taking. And I'm not saying that everybody's like that, but the majority of the people that I've helped have just kept taking. I'm sorry, but that's how it's been. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Carson. So we have to be able to give staff direction, and I was just keeping a tally on my tally may be wrong, but it seems like there's at least 4 people who may want staff to move forward with seeing what it would be to keep St. Benedict's open with stricter rules and requirements and accountability, and measures in place to remove violators or offenders and trespasses and things like that. So I don't want it to come across as I'm doing the math, so I'm going to do it this way. If you're feeling that's the consensus for you to move forward with keeping it open, but giving staff guidance to add stricter rules, requirement, and teeth to it, if that's what you're feeling, if you can give me a thumbs up or something. I'm just trying to see where we are right now, so we can see if we have consensus or not. Okay, we have 4, which is a majority. It's a consensus.
Can I add something?
Yes, please.
So what I would like then is, since obviously the consensus is there, I really have concern of the Homeless Coalition taking months and months to put this in. So I feel like it needs to be handled really quickly then, to put in some rules and policies.
I agree. I think the Homeless Coalition has evolved since the creation of it. In the beginning, it was spending a lot of time defining things, doing research and different things like that. And And for some, it could feel like it was taking a very long time. So no, there was no intent. They meet well, they went to bi-monthly, but they talked, they might have to go back to monthly. So I like 2 months or something like that to come back to council.
Okay. Yeah, Council Curbs?
I agree with Counselor Hensley. I believe that, and maybe not decided tonight, but there needs to be a timeline. There needs to be a deadline to what is brought forward so that we can move as a council to agree or disagree with those suggestions, kind of thing. And overall, I also feel, and I'm just throwing it out there now, I think there needs to be a timeline on the camp itself, that when those suggestions are implemented, that the clock starts ticking. And if there isn't a measurable metric to the improvement of the area after that certain time has elapsed, then we come back and we make a harder decision.
Yes, Councilor Hensley?
So, I guess I'm not sure why we even need 2 months to figure out, like, we don't want drugs there. We don't want I think there's certain things that I think they're pretty clear cut. So I guess I'm not understanding. If we want to maybe take more time to add some more nuances later, I think that's fine, but I feel like I kind of want to get it started quicker. I just feel I don't even understand why 2 months.
Well, so we can break it up. We can do what should the rules be? And yes, those are more clear cut and easier to arrive at. But the other direction council was giving is, how do we make St. Benedict better? And how are we going to enforce those rules? And so we can come up with great rules and implement those quickly, but it seems like maybe there is a few other things then that also needed to be addressed.
Okay, so I don't see any other lights on right now. If anyone has any other comments, I don't want to disrespect you and not allow you to make your comments, but I don't see any, no, you can't say anything. Okay, Daniel, thank you though. Okay, so staff, do you have sufficient direction from council and,
Yes, sir. I'll be emailing the Homeless Coalition tomorrow.
okay.
And just so we're clear, the city manager and Councilor Carson both kind of asked me in one ear and the other ear the same sort of question, which is where does this sit with council in terms of, are you locked in? Or do you need to take a definitive vote? And I think the answer is this kind of work that we're talking about, you don't have a definitive vote. This kind of work that we're talking about will enable you to help inform your decision as staff works through some of these notions.
Okay, we're good? Light on, Mike? Okay. Oh, yeah, I understand. Okay. So any other comments or questions? All right. Okay, this work session is over. Thank you.